calling the meeting of the, I'm echoing somehow. I don't know, am I not muted? There we go. Did that do it? That did it, okay. Great. I am calling the meeting of the Board of Commissioners Finance Committee back to order at 1:03. Could you please call the roll?
Yes. Commissioners Cabell?
Here.
Kowal?
Here.
Gilray?
Here.
Powell?
Here.
Charles?
Present.
Long?
Here.
Moss?
Here.
Markham?
Here.
And Sherry?
All right. So, welcome, everybody. We have before us the folks from Probate Court to tell us about their budget and what's new, what's old, what's changing. So, welcome. If you would please introduce yourselves, and then the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. My name is Linda Hallmark. I am the Chief Judge of the Oakland Probate Court. And thank you for giving us time on your agenda today. I understand you have a very busy day today, so we appreciate the time.
Yeah, we'd rather have you guys have the
This is the easy part.
I always start off with, I'll try and be brief, which whenever a lawyer says that in my courtroom, I kind of sit back because I know they're going to go on forever. So we really will try to not take up too much of your time. I thought I would start by introducing you to the probate judges, for those of you who do not know all of us. As I said, Linda Hallmark. My colleagues are Judge Kathleen O'Brien, Judge Kathleen Ryan, Daniel A. O'Brien, and Jennifer Callahan. And I'm pleased to say that not only are these people my colleagues, they are my friends. We are a very collegial court. Everybody helps everybody else, and we get along quite well. So that's the good news about probate. We also have wonderful administration. Ed Hutton is our probate court administrator. Barb Andrucci is our probate court register. And of course, we're supported by John Cooperrider and Chris Bujak, who are members of our business team. So that's kind of the introduction part. I thought I would also talk a little bit about what we do in probate court. And I know some of you know this, so please bear with me. For those who don't, though, the probate court handles cases involving wills, trusts, and estates. We also are responsible for adult guardianship and conservatorship matters, minor guardianship and conservatorship matters, cases involving developmentally disabled people who might need a guardian. We handle all of the mental health commitment hearings for the county, and civil cases that are attached to our probate wills, estates, and trust cases. So we have a very big docket. 4 of us have handled this for many, many years. I came on board in 1997, but going back to the 80s, there have been 4 probate judges. Obviously, our caseloads have burgeoned since that time, and we're still managing with the help of our great staff. Everything is in order. And we gave you some of the statistics, which I think I'll let Ed take over now and perhaps go through some of our statistical information with you.
Thank you. Yes, and a perfect segue into these 2 tables. As Judge Hallmark just mentioned, that our caseload is ever increasing, has been for a long time, and continues. The outlook is that it will continue to increase with aging demographics, in particular the baby boom generation. As the demographics continue to age, the services that the probate court provides are going to be more and more in demand. We've got these 2 tables up here, a lot of numbers. I'm not going to go through all the numbers in there. The purpose of these tables just was to illustrate the fact that the trend is that we're growing, that our number of filings are going up, their number of active cases are going up. The difference from 2020 to 2021 was a 30% filing increase. So we keep growing, and we're going to need in the future our staff and our facilities, our space to evolve with us.
I was just going to mention also, Ed, obviously during COVID, there was a dip from 2019 to 2020. Our numbers, of course, are now at the pre-COVID stages. And also COVID presented some real challenges for us. because we do deal with things like guardianship, conservatorship. Many people who were ill during that time came to us for assistance with those kinds of issues. So some of the courts had less work. I think we all had way more work on our hands during that time. And we did most of it remotely. Again, great staff assistance and technology helped us out quite a bit.
Yeah, our courtrooms were able to function very well remotely. But one thing that we face with the probate court that's a little bit unique compared to some of the other different types of courts around the state is that we do not have e-filing, and we are dependent upon the state court administrative office to get that. I've been pushing for that. We've been pushing for that for a number of years now. We're going to continue to push for that. That's something that we want. But for now, we're kind of in the Stone Ages. We're working with paper files, hard files. So during COVID, we had to have our staff there. We have been in person the entire time as far as our filing staff goes. So, yeah, huge hats off to them. I can't give them enough credit. They worked hard. They had a great attitude throughout. They're fantastic, but they enabled us to keep going, and they had to be here. So, we will hopefully get e-file in the somewhat near future. There's no date right now, specific date that we've been given by the State Court Administrative Office for that, but we're going to keep pushing for that. That'll be huge for us when we get it. Right now, there's only one court in the state, one probate court that has e-filing, and that's Ottawa County. So. So with that, comparing this next slide compares our staffing now and caseload compared to the staffing that we had in 2003. And since we had paper files then and we have paper files now, it is a pretty good comparison. Our practices now compared to our practices then, there haven't been any technological breakthroughs that have helped a lot, considering that we have paper files that we're pushing around. So in 2003, we had 63 employees. We currently have 55. Our active caseload since then has gone up by 37%. So almost 5,000 additional cases. We've got 8 less positions, and we can feel that. We can sense it in that we're always behind somewhere, and it's just a matter of we look at what we have and what we need to get done, and every service that we provide, we're statutorily mandated to provide it. So we look at where can we afford to fall behind, we allocate our staff to an area, get caught up, fall behind somewhere else, and we constantly play musical chairs like that because of our lack of staffing. We haven't requested additional positions this year or last year just because of the circumstances that the world has been in with the additional cost of everything that has been incurred because of everything that's been going on. But it is something that we're going to have in the future as we continue to grow. Our staff is going to have to grow with us. Performance measures, the State Court Administrative Office, they keep track of our performance and every court in the state's performance. Ours, I'm proud to say, has been exemplary over the years. Last year was no different. We sit down every year with our regional director from State Court Administrative Office and review our numbers. We just did that last week. We look at where we're strong and where we're weak. Our numbers were really, really good. Our regional director was very happy with our performance. I've picked out just a few numbers. I don't want to get too into it. We had an entire packet of numbers where we were at the top or the very top of performance. Reiterating right there that our 30% increase in filings. Guardianship and conservatorship case age rate, percent disposed of within 364 days. Oakland County Probate Court was at 98%. The big county average is 97%. Those big counties being Wayne, Macomb, Genesee, Oakland, Kent, and is Livingston?
I think they're
Not Livingston?
medium.
Okay. And just a couple more stats. I won't bore you with too many, but state filings, clearance rate, percent disposed of within 35 days. Our court was at 86%. Big county average 79%, so we're way at the top of that category. Percent disposed within 182 days, Oakland County 98%, Big County average 98%, right at the top, and we were across the board in every category. Budget savings and actual and expected. We were asked, as were the other courts in the county and other departments, as far as I'm aware, to cut 4% of our budget. And we took that seriously, and we sat down and analyzed our budget and where we could cut, and taken into consideration that every service we provide is required, it is statutorily mandated that we provide what we provide, and we could not come up with anywhere that we could cut our budget and still be able to provide the services that we're required to provide. We just don't have the favorability, we don't have the cushion built in to our budget right now. But that, we really tried, we really wanted to, and we continued to look for places that we could save funding, that we could not necessarily cut our budget, but save money elsewhere. One area that we identified, there was a court rule that was changed that requires all the courts to redact personally identifying information from court documents. There were two options as far as ways to do that. One option was a program that allows us to manually go in. An individual would have to go line by line and redact that information from each document that required it. The other option was an automated program that would go in, identified which fields needed to be redacted, and would automatically redact them. The first option cost about $8,000. The other option, the automated option, cost over $80,000. We looked at the number of documents that we redacted. We decided that we would be able to manually do that and save that money. It just didn't seem physically responsible to go on and get that automated process. We felt like we could do it without it, so we tried to save some money there and went with the manual option. E-filing, I've already went into that. We don't have it, we want it. We're going to continue to push for it. That should be some improved efficiency once we get it. But that will be years down the road. That will not be anytime immediate, as much as we would like for it to be.
I should just point out, Oakland County was doing really well trying to get to e-filing, but the state of Michigan decided to take that over. So we're mandated by the Supreme Court to use the state system, and they don't have it up and running yet. Because like everything in the state of Michigan, and I hope we're not being recorded.
Well, you are, but it's okay.
bogged down in the bureaucracy, and I won't even get into why, but anyway, that's where we are.
Yeah.
We can't move forward until the state does.
Yeah, Oakland County's been great. If it was up to Oakland County, we'd already have it, I'm sure.
Are we a priority for the state? Where are we on the list?
We are very well situated to be a court that they consider in the early stages, given that we are so closely associated with the circuit court, and the circuit court's been e-filing for years, that we have the technology support that we have, and we have individuals already familiar with e-filing here that could help implement that system. But in talking to the state, there have been times, actually at one point, we were supposed to implement the e-filing process earlier this year, at the beginning of this year, but things have changed over and over. There have been times where we were at the top of the list, and there have been times where we weren't on the list at all. I think the last list I saw, we weren't on it, and it listed the next 10. I'm not too discouraged by that, given how much it changes, but I'm gonna keep pushing for it. We'll keep pushing for it. Hopefully we can get back to the top of that list, because that's where we want to be.
We must process one of the highest number of cases in the state, I mean, just by our sheer size.
Yeah, absolutely. We're the second largest county, so we're probably a little behind Wayne, but we process many, many cases.
Yeah, okay.
Another project on the last slide that we have here, an outlook for future years, I've included in this a leadership project that has been slated to be implemented for a couple of years, but obviously it requires the IT department to implement this, and they have had their hands very full in the past few years, and understandably so. My understanding is that this is close to starting, that we're gonna implement this soon. It's going to improve our efficiency scanning documents, which is gonna help us immensely now, and when eventually we get e-filing, scanning documents is gonna be a big part of that. So this isn't just a temporary project that's gonna help us for a minute until we go to e-filing. This is gonna continue to help us throughout. So that should improve our efficiency, and every little bit of efficiency that we gain, we're gonna reassess our needs and our staffing, and if the number of additional staff that we need on top of what we already have goes down, then that'll benefit the county, budget savings and throughout. Potential future needs, I don't even know if we should have put potential in there. This is for sure a future need, and that is our space that we have, and our search for adequate space around this building, around the 1200 building. We ended up getting sprawled throughout the building. We have courtrooms that are very far apart from one another, courtrooms that are very far from our filing counter, where customers have to walk back and forth from a filing counter to a distant courtroom, or courtrooms on different floors. And that's difficult for any entity or for any court, but especially problematic for a court who generally serves the elderly and disabled individuals, and to make them traverse this, from the east end to the west end of the building is, it's borderline cruel when you see it at times. So that's a big problem that we have. Also, the safety of our space. Our filing counter has absolutely nothing to keep somebody from wanting to come around the counter and be in the same space as our employees. There's nowhere for them to go. And we have had several individuals over the years come behind that counter. Luckily, none of them have ever wanted to do anybody any harm, but if they ever did, there's nothing that we could do about it. And that's a big drawback of our space. And another issue that we're having that is becoming a bigger problem all the time is where to put these paper files. We have outgrown our vault area where we lock up our files. We're utilizing 3 or 4 different rooms in the basement, and for the first time, we have enough files that we're unable to keep our active files upstairs where they're close, where we can retrieve them when needed. We actually have active files that are 2 floors down in the basement in one of these rooms, and if somebody comes in or a judge needs a file, we've got to send somebody down there to dig through boxes and dig through shelves and get these files. And as bad as that sounds, when that occurs and we have a line of 10 people at our filing counter, it's a big problem. It looks unprofessional, and people are not pleased with their experience at the court. But right now, that's the hand we're dealt. That's the situation we're in. We're going to continue to grow. This problem's going to continue to get worse, and it's something that is going to be easier to address the sooner it's addressed. But it's just going to get worse until it breaks. So. In the future, that's something that's going to need to be addressed. And staffing shortage, I've already covered that, so I'm not going to go into that again. That's all I have, unless Judge Hallmark or John or Chris have anything to add. Good.
Well, after all that message of doom and gloom, do you have any questions for
I
us?
have questions for you,
sorry.
yes. Okay, well, if you're finished, I'll open it to the floor. Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Charles.
Okay, so my question, and commissioners, y'all can help me with this. It sounds like with layout, structure, that's like a huge thing, and since we gotta wait on the state for the filing help, is who makes those decisions, and I don't know, you could tell me too, who makes those decisions in the reorg of them in the court system? Is that state?
You mean the
Or-
space?
Space, yes.
I think it's facilities.
It's facilities, for
Yeah,
sure.
and when it got
And
to me, I
let
was going to
tell-
ask some
I've been here a
questions
long
about
time,
that.
So I've lived through several iterations of different designs for the courthouse, and we do studies, they spend money, we look at things, everybody says, yeah, we need to do something, and then it doesn't happen. So,
Oh, really?
well, things have happened over the years. We had a recession, and we had COVID, and, so oftentimes things just got,
So we need to maybe
Put on the back burner.
request, okay, so that's something we can talk with leadership and then.
Well, and facilities will be here momentarily, because today they're being looked at,
yeah,
so.
please ask them.
And I think one of the things I'll just jump in for a second, and I'll give you back the floor. But facilities is looking at the entire site for building utilization, because with hybrid workers and energy use and all of that, the whole question of how are we using the space on this campus is being investigated. This should be part of it, how can we better service the probate court? Because it sounds like you're kind of stuck where everybody else isn't. That's what it
Right.
sort of sounds like.
Yeah, that
We have the
is-
big circuit
Yeah, they
court, and
all
we have the
over.
this, and we have the that, and okay, you can have a spot here, and you can have a spot here. That's what it sounds like.
And it
is-
just seems like because of COVID, because we shifted with the hybrid, we do have the question of buildings that we have open, like available space.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great time now for us to now really ask them to
Ask the
look at this
questions.
for probate and not drag their feet. So we put a date on it to say we want to get, you know what I mean, to kind of help expedite that, especially when they got the filing, because that's another issue. And then with IT, when we meet with IT? To ask about the scanning.
Tomorrow, I think we
Oh,
talked to
see,
IT.
I'll be by phone. Okay, so the scanning, just to see where they at with that, and I think that, again, we've known in the past, both with facilities and IT, we've had to give them dates to get back with us, to kind of make sure they're kind of keeping it on their radar. So I would like for us to kind of work that out. I don't know if, protocol, but I would like to see that happen. And then, when you referenced, estate filing clearance rate and recent disposal within 100, what does that mean? I need to know, like, what does it mean?
Our clearance rate is are we processing the cases in a timely manner?
Oh,
And the
okay.
state of Michigan oversees that.
Okay.
We're not supposed to have any cases that last more than a year from like start
In
to.
probate.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
okay, so
that's what they monitor. We're doing well in those categories. As Ed said, we just met with the state last week, and they're happy with us. So
okay,
far, so good.
and then percent or disposed within 182, that just mean that if nothing, like y'all do away with them within 182 days?
Well, yeah, I mean, our cases often stay open, but, for instance, somebody comes in and says, I want to open an estate for my mom, who recently passed away. We have to dispose of that in so many days in order to meet their clearance rate standard.
Okay, got it. And then, I know you referenced staff needs, but if you had a wish list, how many staff would be like golden for you all if y'all could hit that mark? What would that number be?
I mean, if I could have anything, I have 6, if I could have 6 deputies and 6 office assistants, that would be amazing. 4 would be an enormous help. And with future efficiencies, if we had e-filing and if we get this leadership project through, then maybe that's what we would need. And that's as big a concern as staffing as the spacing issue is becoming. It has overtaken it since I've been here. It was, staffing was our primary issue, and it's going to continue to be an issue because our numbers are going up, our caseload is going up. But actually spacing, now that we're putting those files in the basement, that was kind of the point where, wow, this is, okay, that got real. Like now that's a bigger problem than even staffing is. So, and I think part of that is because that stretches our staff thinner. Every time we have this, we're spread out and we have to send somebody down to the basement for ever how long it takes to find a file down there, which may be in a box, it may not be on a shelf. It takes up more time and it's less efficient, and now it's more of a burden on the limited staff that we do have. So, I mean.
And then on top of workforce staff, just getting people now, that's like a double whammy.
Sure, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank
Thank
you.
you so much for your consideration.
Oh,
I really
no,
appreciate it.
I'ma
I mean, honestly, just to have somebody that cares means so much, because I've been seeing these things.
Support staff first, I tell
for-
everybody.
for
I'm about
years.
support staff first.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
thank you,
And if our
Commissioner
staff
Powell.
can't work, they, you know what I mean? Like, that's where I started my career, support staff. So we have to have a weekend so we can do what we need to do. So I am gonna be on these two with the layout and the scanning.
Can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
No
That
problem.
means so much to us.
The reduction that Ed had talked about earlier, when he went from 65, or 65 to 55 approximately.
Oh, and where?
All that staff it's not the non-judicial staff, that's the support staff that you're talking about, it's not judicial staff, so.
Is that it, Commissioner Powell?
Yes, sorry, yeah.
Okay.
that's it.
Commissioner Charles, followed by Commissioner McGilvery, and then Commissioner Moss.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just noticed, or I made some notes is what I'm trying to say, that somewhat questions, somewhat observations. So the question is, could you just high level, what's the difference between conservatorship and guardianship?
Yes. Guardianship is really taking care of the person, so medical decisions, placement, those kinds of decisions are within the purview of the guardian. The conservatorship is over finances.
Okay.
So the simple explanation is.
Yeah, and it was on that statistics page from the PowerPoint, and just the numbers there with regards to like adult versus juvenile, and there was even something on there called inter vivo with regards to trusts. I'm a big fan of the probate court only because I've had to utilize it when my grandmother passed back in 11, and I'm just always advocating for people not to count on a will, but to also ensure that they have a revocable trust. A living revocable trust is always very important. And so when I see this, it's like, we could keep some of that activity down if more people were prepared with trust and things like that. My next observation was you talked about, and I think Commissioner Powell talked about it a bit, with just documents and making sure that the retrieval process, like you spoke about, is effective. And so I have to ask, are the documents being scanned at all, like on a regular scanner, and then perhaps a microfiche at some point? How are we able to ensure that they don't burn up, or do we have that capacity?
And we do. We have to follow the recommendations from the state on how we store files. And depending on case type, they have rules for each type of case and how long we have to store them. So I think the earliest we can dispose of a file is after 80 years. So
80?
80 years,
80,
the
yes.
first ones that we can dispose of, if I recall correctly. So you can see how they would add up. And some of them we have to keep forever, whatever that means. So, but there are some rules that allow us to scan them, put them on microfiche, have a digital copy, and then eventually destroy those. And anytime that we can, and we have the manpower to do it, we do that. But we do scan everything, just like you said, in case something happens. Even though it's not an official file, we have an electronic file just in case. And plus, it makes it more efficient, especially now that we're doing as much remote as we are, that individuals can access those files from remote locations. So we do as much of that as we're allowed to do and as we have the manpower to do.
That's good to know. And you've talked about PII, which is something used to be important to me when I was working with statistics and surveys. How do you make sure that you can correctly look at a document and know who it's for if you've had to redact all that PII?
We keep that information. That information does exist, and it is in a file, but now it's in a confidential file. There have been new iterations of the court documents, the SCAO forms that have come through, where we'll have one master document that has this information, and that's going to be kept confidential on the file. And then the other documents, these new iterations of the SCAO forms, don't even have boxes for that information to be included on them, and those are the documents that will stay in the public file.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner McGilvery?
Thank you. With the use of remote court sessions and the hybrid plan that the county has in effect for staff during the pandemic, and where they only have to work one day a week, I'm curious as to your need for space. It seems like with the remote sessions and the amount of employees down per day that are in the office working, why is there such a big need for more space?
Yeah, go ahead, Ed.
I'm going to stop you right there. Tech is telling me everybody needs to speak into their mics. It's okay. Just
Yeah, there's, it's not just a simple answer to that. It's multifaceted. Part of it is what we've already discussed about the paper files, and the majority of our staff is non-judicial staff, and that's the individuals that are working those files, are accepting those hard
And
documents.
they're here, they're on campus, they're not working remotely.
Yep, and they have to be here to do that, and they have been all along. So that's part of it. Until we get e-filing, we're bound by that, and there's no getting around that. And then when it comes to proceedings actually in the court, and Judge Hallmark can speak more directly to this, but there are some court proceedings that lend themselves very, very well to remote hearings, and there are some that just don't by their very nature. A very contested hearing where individuals are very contentious and argumentative. can be extremely difficult with, little Zoom boxes and keeping everybody in order. It really depends on the parties that are participating in the hearing and how much they're going to observe protocols as well. So it's up to the judge's discretion to determine the right cases to utilize remote hearings to the greatest extent possible is what the court rule is right now. And we do that. When we can use remote hearings, we do. When cases don't allow for it, then we have them in person.
Yeah, and to your point, I'm still doing quite a bit remotely. I think the other three judges are more getting back up to the pre-pandemic numbers. And we don't really know yet what direction we're going to get from the Supreme Court. We're still waiting for them to give us some mandates. It may change, and certainly, we're not going to ask for space that we don't need. So to the extent we can do things remotely and we can save space, we certainly are more than willing to do that. But at this point, we just started resuming full-time jury trials. Up until now, we were sort of on a rotational basis, and they just opened it up so that juries can come back in. So we don't really know yet how all of that's going to shake out, but maybe in 6 months we'll have a better grip on how that's going to go.
I had these conversations with Judge Ryan a while back, and I just want to, I understand you're in need for space. She was in need for space then, where you had to run around to the back courtroom and this and that.
Yeah.
And she explained all that to me. But one other question I've got is that you mentioned on the e-filing, there's one county in the state, that's Ottawa County. How did they become first?
Maybe Chris can speak to that better. I don't know what criteria they use to choose that court.
I believe Ottawa County was also chosen because they were testing some of the new state case management system. Ed, the probate court here uses the state's case management system, but we have not migrated to the newest iteration of that. It makes us an ideal candidate, in my opinion, for e-filing for our probate court because we're already on their system. But Ottawa, maybe because it's smaller, more manageable?
Yeah, that was my understanding. They were looking for a smaller court. Taking on Wayne or Oakland's a huge task for the state. So they started with a smaller court to do their testing, and then they'll eventually move up to the larger counties.
And Ottawa's issues may be more representative of most of the state compared to Oakland County issues or Wayne County issues. Wayne County is about approximately twice the size of our courts. Our court is about twice the size of the next smallest court. So to pick us or Wayne might not, to work out the bugs of a program, you might end up with a program that doesn't suit the rest of the state as well as it could. So that might have factored in as well.
We are the largest probate court in the state using the state's case management system. So I think it does represent a great opportunity for them.
Let me ask this, is there anything that the Board of Commissioners can do to persuade them that they need it as fast as possible?
I'm not sure, but if it ever comes up, if there's ever an opportunity where I can have you guys backing me up on, some meeting or some letter or something that when I'm pushing for it, I absolutely will remember that and utilize your guys' help as much as we can.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Next up is Commissioner Moss,
Thank you. I should think
by
that
Commissioner Cabell.
I should think the security issue alone would lend it a certain sense of urgency, but what do I know? Okay, I have a question. Couple. In your categorical, in your summary, you mentioned that you are assisting in eliminating a portion of the backlog of cases resulting from COVID pandemic. I either missed it or attended. How is that backlog going? How is that? All gone? All done? Where are you at on that?
It is going well. We're definitely chipping away from it.
Chipping like what percentage maybe?
I don't know a percentage, but I
Ballpark.
could say The one big area there, we send out reminders to everybody who is deficient, all the fiduciaries that are deficient because they haven't filed an annual report or an accounting or something that lets us know that this case is still going, what's going on with it. Annually, they have to submit that, and we send out reminders. That's an area that we were behind, and we're almost caught up because we devoted some staff to that area. But like I mentioned, we get behind in another area when we get caught up in one area. So that is a non-court case function that we got behind on and that we're catching up. As far as docket numbers, our docket numbers are stellar. We have figured out how to be efficient while utilizing Zoom.
Could you define stellar?
I think if somebody files a petition right now, for most of our judges, they're going to get a hearing within 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the judge, depending on the type of case.
Yeah.
And that's because you have to take into account the amount of time that's allowed to serve. That's about as fast as you can turn a case around. That's really good.
I used to do these cases some years ago, but still. All right. Now, I noticed that you are talking about your mentions facilities maintenance to bring equity in line with federal OMB. How are you using the term equity? It seems to have a lot of different definitions.
I'm not sure where did that?
That would be on page 36 in the smaller one, the categorical. I think I know how you're using that word, but I'd like to be sure. Okay, we can leave that aside while you look that up. You also, well, maybe you better have that because I'm going off on a lot of the reports here.
Okay.
You had reserves that were depleted. How were they depleted, and how is that fund being stabilized? Would you like to borrow
Is this your
mine?
question about, I think you asked this question for the circuit was here.
Yeah, I did, and now I'm asking you.
Yeah, Kyle, I think, can address it's a.
Right, so
it's
this
a
is the
liability
same
account.
Same deal.
standard, this is the same adjustment made across all departmental budgets that we touched on yesterday.
Okay, so just because I like the word depleted, I don't need to ask it every
It
time.
is an excellent word.
It is a fabulous word. Depletion is even better. Okay. I noticed in the line items, once again, I see retirement, and retirement is going up significantly from 791 up to 929, which is quite a bit. What's that about? I think, is that mentioned all the baby boomers going away, or what is all that?
Some.
Is that retirement from our court?
Yeah, that is general fund probate court, line item 722770, retirement. If that's what it costs to get rid of the baby boomers, it's cheap. It's a bargain, yeah.
I can speak to the VSEP, and
John's retiring, so it's a little sensitive right now.
I didn't see you as a boomer. I thought you would be like an Xer. Am I a boomer? Get out of here. How old was I when the
we do
Beatles hit
not have
America?
any staff that's taken the VSEP or that is planning to retire right now, any direct staff. We have a very young force right now, a very young staff. When I came in, there was we have a great staff. We have a lot of energy with our employees. They work hard. They're fantastic. I can't say enough good about them. But as far as retirement in the future, we have nobody slated right now, and we don't have a lot of people that are going to be in a retirement situation coming up because we are so young.
So,
Just to be sensitive to time, we have about 5 minutes left
Okay.
with this group.
all right,
So-
one last, and I'm done. In that case, why is retirement line going up? Is that at the very end, grand total expenditures going up quite a bit from the 21 actual to the recommended. What does that reflect, may I ask? It's a lot of various different things.
I could probably address some of it.
Super.
Most of it is the salaries and fringe benefits, because for probate court, probably 70%, 75% of their expenditures are all salaries and
Sure.
fringe staff. So that's what I would attribute.
Personnel
most of it
driven.
to. And built into this then is, I think, a 5% increase, if I'm correct there, Kyle, didn't they build in about a 5%? So that's what most of the expenditures would be. Other than that, they're really
Yeah, we don't have a lot of programs, mostly we have staff.
Yeah.
We did get increases, though, also like in our appointed counsel and professional
Yeah, one area.
evaluation
Yeah.
area.
The one
Right.
area, we did ask for $80,000 in terms of psychological evaluation help because we're required by statute to do these evaluations.
Evaluation of the client,
The client, yeah.
defendant, whatever, yeah.
We used to have
Respondent.
MORC, which was Macomb Oakland Regional Center, that did a lot of these for the developmentally disabled independent medical exams for us for free. But a couple of years ago, due to various reasons, they had to pull out of that. And so the county has to pay up all that now.
Yeah.
rather than-
Yeah, Mork definitely, helped. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah, hey, I just had a quick question about guardianships. That's a big part of your work, and that's becoming a bigger part, and that's something that we all are, or hopefully all of us are cognizant of, just for the sake of, like, taking care of our most vulnerable people. So what, if any, like, recourse do you have for, and maybe this is a state thing, so please educate me, but when guardians are found to be bad or when conservatorships go wrong, what can you do or what can we help you do to make sure that people aren't suffering?
Well, I mean, first of all, it has to come to our attention. I
Mhm.
mean, we remove those people. We can appoint a professional to come in and do a surcharge if that's appropriate, if someone's taking money that they shouldn't take. We also have referrals that we make to the Department of Health and Human Services. There's an Adult Protective Services unit that can come in and assist. We make referrals to the police. We have guardian ad litems who we can appoint lawyers to
Yeah.
assist the vulnerable person. So there are a lot of resources. Unfortunately, what often happens is the person's taken advantage of before they ever get to court. So, I mean, I just had a case, like, break your heart. Gentleman, not married, no children, relied on his friend and neighbor to help him, and the man took $400,000. Then they come to court and say, we have a problem. Well, now the money is gone, and it's very, very hard. I mean, I can order the guy to repay it, but once the money's gone, it's very difficult. So those are the headaches and things that keep me up at night, but.
And it sounds like there isn't much that we can do at the county or with the court. There's state adult protective services, so that's.
Yeah,
kind of
and also the Attorney General's been really active lately in overseeing a lot of those cases, and they're becoming more and more involved on a state level, so that's helpful as well.
Okay.
And also, and the judges know this as well, and they'll let me know if there's a case where it looks like somebody is criminally liable. I'll contact the prosecutor's office, the sheriff's department, who is the appropriate person to contact, and let them know what the situation is, and they can do an investigation and go from there. And they've been very, very receptive to that and asked for that in the past. So, yeah, any case that comes up that looks like it needs to go in that direction, we absolutely don't hesitate, and we send it to them. They can look at it and they can make the call.
We also get a heads up. For instance, we recently got a notice from Macomb County that there was an individual that they thought they had a problem with, and they wanted us to know about it, so this person didn't get appointed in any of our cases. We can do a check and make sure that, we're avoiding that kind of
Okay.
situation.
Okay. And also, just as an FYI for the group, Commissioner Nelson has been working on an ARPA thing, not budget related, but ARPA about seniors. And I've been assisting in some ways, so this might be part of that conversation, just FYI.
Thank you, that's great.
If you have questions in the future, if there's anything that we can do to help, by all means, call me up, and I'm happy to help in any way that I can.
Okay, I'm going to let Commissioner Powell have the last question.
Okay, y'all alluded to the 13% staff decrease that was mentioned on one of the slides. What is that? Is they leaving, going to a different department, leaving Oakland County? Like, what is happening with those people? Or do y'all know?
They
That
just
was over a
replaced.
period of time. It was like since 2003 all the way to.
Oh, okay.
And so a lot of it was retirement and.
During the
leaving.
2008 recession, too, we did have to cut
We had
staff.
to cut staff, during about 2008 through 2015, there was a lot of cuts that had to be made.
Oh,
during
got
that
it.
time
Okay.
frame.
Right.
Okay.
There is a significant budget task, and probate's just never been able to recover in their budget from that.
Okay.
You're
Thank
kind
you.
of like a fixed income. You're going to get people no matter what, just by nature of the work that you do, so.
Right.
Yep.
I really appreciate you coming in today. I think what I heard was you have real space issues and personnel staffing issues over the long term, and facilities is coming in next, so somebody on this crew will ask them about that, I'm sure.
Well, I just wanted to thank you again on behalf of all of the judges. I really appreciate your time and your interest. We think we do a great service, and so do you, and we really appreciate that. So thank you.
Really appreciate the hard work and sharing your information with us. Thank you.
All right, take care.
And if there's ever any information you need or any questions you have, feel free to contact me. Edward Hutton, I'm the court administrator. I'm happy to take your questions.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay?
Where do I find your contact info?
So here in my pocket.
I think he looks like,
I noticed your,
But I'm not surprised on the stall with probate. No, with the system, with the filing system.
That's crazy.
I ain't surprised on that though.
No.
Michigan got a bad rating on probate. Like our probate system here as a state. Not even that. It just kind of makes it kind of listen.
Ready.
Over there is getting your PowerPoint pulled up.
Nice.
thumbs up. I guess I never stopped the meeting, but we're still in session. And before us now, we have the Facilities Management Department. Welcome.
Thank you.
We've been talking to all of the other departments about what they do and how much it costs and what their plans are. And so the floor is yours, and then once you've gotten through everything you want to tell us, there will be questions. And you have until about 2:30.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Yeah. Well, thank you. I'm Ed Joss, the Director of Facilities Management. With me today, I have a few members of the Facilities Management team, as well as some that I think are remoted in, but I'll let them introduce themselves.
Good afternoon. I'm Jason Horner. I'm the Manager of Planning and Engineering.
Hi, I'm Todd Burkle, and I'm the Manager of Support Services.
And I'm Joe Murphy, the Manager of Facilities Maintenance and Operations.
I'm Stephanie Hunt, Supervisor of Admin Services.
Okay.
And then Misty and team, are you on?
We are. Can you hear us?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep, go ahead.
Good afternoon. Misty Race with Facilities, Planning and Engineering.
Mike Chason, Chief of Facilities Maintenance and Operations. Mark Baldwin, Chief of Landscape Services. Ken Miller, Chief of Custodial Operations.
All right, so you heard from our three managers. We have three divisions now, just a reminder, in facilities management. Within the past year, support services joined our department. Before that, support services was under the central services department. We are a group of, I think, 201. So three divisions, 201. We have some slides here to go through. We were asked to keep it brief, so I will move through the slides fairly quickly. And then, of course, we'll answer any questions that you have and provide any more detail that I may have skipped through quickly on the slides. So first we have our KPIs, which of course are things that we want to focus on and are reflected in some of our budget requests. You'll see up here that we have 8 headline KPIs. Typically, and with the other departments, there are only 5 headline KPIs or less. I had mentioned that the support services division was with central services not too long ago, and they had started on their KPI efforts before we started on ours. So facilities management, maintenance and operations, and engineering came up with the first 5 on the list there, and then we included the 3 that support services had already identified. Our service level KPIs, we are still currently working through those. We were one of the last departments to get started on the KPI process. So we are working through those. We're getting very close to identifying those. And I should mention too that on the headline KPIs, we are very close to identifying and collecting all the data that we need to set our baseline and then track our goals. The service level KPIs on the support services side, there is one thing that I wanted to note on here that they have started tracking, and that is their miles per gallon on our vehicles, which you can see. You know, it's not a big number when you look and see that, you know, we've been able to save 0.16 miles per gallon, but so far for this year, that's equated to over 10,000 gallons of fuel. Key budget changes. The big one for us is it's a funding shift. So we rely heavily on outside vendors, contractors, to complete a lot of the work that we need to do. And with this, it would allow us to bring those services in-house. So things such as paving maintenance, and our recycling program, which right now our recycling program is fairly minimal, and we really want to expand that. We have plans to really enhance that, and so many of these positions will allow us to perform those services in-house, so we're simply shifting the funding that we've been paying to outside contractors to use that to hire internal staff. And you can see the offset is approximately $7,000 that we would have to pay to make that happen. New investments. These two on here are, the first two on here are fairly small, but I think that they're worth mentioning. We want to move forward with this ISO certification for the county campus, and if so, we would be the first governmental campus to achieve this certification in the United States. Same would be for landscape management and operations accreditation. If we're able to move forward with that, we would be the first in the country to have that certification. Also, there's a huge focus on integrating more electric vehicles to the fleet as they become available. And then for those vehicles that we're forced to purchase right now that are combustible vehicles, try to purchase, the most fuel efficient that we can. Additional key budget changes. There are 3 positions that we're proposing that will help us with our efforts. One is an energy engineer. The other is a facilities project engineer, senior project engineer that helps with our capital improvement projects, and then also a management analyst. Ongoing and new initiatives, I'd mentioned that we really want to expand our recycling program, reduce carbon emissions, and continue to increase our fleet average mile per gallon, continue to upgrade our building management system, which will also help with our efficiencies. The garage I'd mentioned is working on a couple of different programs to improve our miles per gallon. And then lastly on this slide, the GIS indoors, which is a software system that will be much more efficient for the engineering group on tracking our space. Major contracts that are up for bid within the next year would be the new vehicle purchases for manufacturer year 2024, our electrical consulting contract, as well as our mechanical engineering and our environmental engineering contracts. Anticipated IT projects. The first one on here would be a switch on the database that's being used right now at the central garage. Continued BMS replacement support from IT. Our CAM system, which will allow us to manage our assets better, as well as stay on course for our preventative maintenance. And then also Clarity, which is a resource planning software for the engineering group that will help them manage their workload. And I said I would be quick. And I was hoping it would be, 2:30?
We have questions, I am
Okay.
sure.
And we'll do our best to answer them.
All right, I will open the floor. We'll start with Commissioner Powell.
So can you give us an update as to where you all are with, I guess, the study overall for the campus in regards to facility usage? And then particularly, we want to know where things are at with probate court, because that was one department that just came before you all, and that was one of their things that they kind of need looked at moving forward for their department.
Right. So I'm sure you're all aware that, one of the big efforts that we're undertaking right now is a capital improvement study to take a look at all of our needs for our grounds and our facilities. When COVID hit us, right, we quickly realized that the way folks worked and the amount of space that was needed may change long term. So we engaged with an outside firm that was also working on the CIP with us to put together a space needs assessment. And we've completed that for a couple of our large buildings, including this building here. We interviewed all of the department heads on what their space needs might be, how they see their workforce or their work taking place moving forward as far as like hybrid working, working remotely, how often they need people in the office, hoteling, so on and so forth. So that effort is underway. We actually had a meeting just this morning on the 5th floor of the EOB with the executive leadership team and Kyle and his team to discuss next steps for moving forward on that.
So,
You
so
still
did
have
the
the floor.
executive have a follow-up timeline of when he expects to have something with next steps from you all?
Well, we think we know what our next steps are, but in those are simply to complete the space assessments for the remaining buildings. And once we have that, then we can put a plan in place to actually, look at implementing changes. And we are currently waiting on a proposal from Plant Moran, who is the group that we're working with, to move forward on that effort.
When you expect that?
Does anyone recall when Plant Moran said that they would have that delivered to us? I thought within the next couple of weeks. Yep.
Okay.
That's the proposal for the evaluation they're going to do.
To continue the work, to continue evaluating the rest of our facilities, correct?
And how long do you think that will take?
They did mention, okay, so everyone, like I mentioned, in the county has been surveyed on their needs, but they simply have not been through all the buildings. They've been through the courthouse and the executive office building. It will be months. We're hoping not many, but I can't say for sure how long. Again, we just met this morning, and we walked out of that room with a plan to move forward, and we need to have further discussions with them shortly on the timing of it.
Okay. I want to remind everybody to talk into your microphones. Commissioner Powell, you still have the floor.
In a few months, I guess, whenever, just ask for an update so we can kind of stay in the loop on this, just in regards to all our departments and just this project, period. Because one thing we don't want is snail-paced movement either.
That's right. We want to keep moving on this.
Customer service, we're big on customer service, so.
Right.
And I'm just saying, this is just for all the departments, this whole project, everything. Not saying that we can kind of maybe control it, but I know it's a lot of other things going on too, like materials, all types of stuff that's halting some things, but I just think overall, when they start doing this work, I would just like for us to keep touching base with this department if possible, please.
Right. And improvements don't have to wait for the whole study, right?
So it'll be like phased out probably?
Yes and no. Yes, when we determine what needs to be done, we will phase the work.
Got it.
But from my perspective, in order to do, to make thoughtful improvements, we need to know, like campus-wide, what's going to happen, a master plan, right? I don't think it would be time or money well spent to just go into one building, move people around, make changes, and then go look at the next building, because it may be that departments need to swap, or that we can maybe vacate a building because we can reduce our footprint. So.
No, I think we all understand that. We just kind of want to have regular reports so we kind of can follow that we're having some movement.
And we can provide that for sure, without a doubt. It will take some time, just keep in mind, we have 45 buildings and 2 million square feet of office space, so it does take time.
Okay.
So maybe if you could just issue, a status to us every quarter or something that just goes into our communications, so we are kept in the loop.
Whatever you request, Chair. I would like us.
A regular update.
Yeah, we'd be happy to do that, for
Okay.
sure. Yep.
Okay, anything else, Commissioner Powell?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, any other commissioners have questions for these fellows? Commissioner Cavell?
I was in line.
And lady. Oh, I'm sorry.
She goes on mine.
So
She's right.
I appreciate
gotta raise
that
that hand.
information. Are you going to be using GIS to determine building and facility needs in terms of personnel in places? Just was wondering. I remember someone said something last week about utilizing this new GIS for that.
Yep, and that is one of the things that we've included in our proposal is the purchase of and the support from IT on GIS indoors.
Not yet.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yep.
Great to hear. And then I'm not familiar with SNO 9001. It was ISO 9001 and then SNO 9001. Is that different? SNOW?
So
No.
online, we have Mark Baldwin, who is our chief of grounds and our expert in that field. And Mark, did you hear the question okay?
Yes, I did. It's just the second part of the ISO 9001 standard. The snow part pertains strictly to snow removal.
Oh, that's so cool. Thank you.
That makes sense. Wow.
Mr. Joss, you mentioned 3 divisions, 201 employees total. I only heard support services. What were those other 2 divisions?
So Joe is the manager of maintenance and operations. That is the FMNO that everybody refers to our department, but FMNO is one of our divisions. And then Jason is the manager of planning and engineering. So he manages projects and a big portion of the CIP.
Okay, perfect. And then I'm just going to toss out one general question that I have, and then if other people don't ask them, we can keep asking them. Oh, wow, this is a long little thing here. Okay. Okay, thanks.
Last page, right there.
There we go. We were just talking about ADA compliance and things of that nature, so I'm going to start with that one in terms of ADA compliance on county property. How are we coming along with that?
So ADA, as I mentioned before, is something that, is on our radar. We know we need to make improvements in. Kyle, I think in the budget hearings yesterday, mentioned that there is a CIP study with an estimated dollar amount attached to it, and that will address the ADA improvements that we need to make.
And, are there legal, like, is anyone going to complain and then sue us about?
That's how it works.
I thought that's how it worked. And I wasn't sure that we had a grace period to get compliant. So, again, Chair,
ADA is 30 years
if
old.
we can help out in any way to support what they're trying to do, I'm here for it.
Pick up the phone and call us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Markham, I'm hoping you noticed that in the CIP, we did move up the ADA project for the toilet room here at the auditorium.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's bugged me since the first day I came to work here, and I really appreciate that.
It's in the upcoming year CIP. So we will be bringing that to you towards the end of the year for approval.
Super. Thank you. Wow. Okay, was that it, Commissioner Charles?
Yeah, let's see what other folks have.
Okay, Commissioner Cavell and then Commissioner Kowal.
Yeah, thanks. Hey, Ed and team. Well, on the same vein as ADA, Brett Rassigan works with you all, or he's in it?
So he's in planning, which is under economic development, and they focus more and work with like the CVTs on their downtown development, whereas we are focused on our campus and our facilities.
Okay. Well, then this might not be the time to lift this up, but some people on the other side of Telegraph been sitting on a ARPA request for $500,000 for an ADA compliant small business grant program that if you have any pull over there, let them know. I was going to ask you that, but now I'm just saying it. I see in the budget staffing, if I'm reading it right, did you hit your 4% staff reduction target, or are you exempt for some reason?
We did in 2022.
Okay.
Yep.
So you're exempt?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
thanks. And then, like you said about having a lot of vendors, can you speak to DEI and what you think of the purchasing person that's going to be coming in? How is this a good thing? How is it going to add complications to what you do, if any?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's going to add complications, and honestly, like, I have not, the new purchasing person coming in, I haven't met or talked with, but I can tell you that, we've had these discussions before.
Yeah.
We hear you loud and clear, and we understand, and we have been, and we will continue to work with purchasing on those efforts.
Okay, thanks. And then did you say when you were doing the review, the first two places you looked, the review it was courts and executive office?
So the building space needs assessment.
Yeah.
2 buildings have been completed. The entire courthouse, this whole mini city,
Yeah.
and then the executive office building.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
2 of the biggies.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. And we had this discussion before, and thank you, Ed, for agreeing to have like a Zoom meeting about, we heard a lot about inner air quality during COVID, and there were people that were, there was one lady who was an industrial engineer, and just talking about how we can do a better job of, not transmitting viruses and bacteria and whatnot, just with some newer technology as far as filtering the air. And it seems like there was something that was going to be done at the jail, kind of like a, but anyway, can you bring me up to speed on what's going on there, so that when we're in buildings, there's many reasons, there's off-gassing, all kinds of things that happen, but it would be nice to have clean air in the buildings.
Right, yep. So what we've been doing with our current systems is, including filters that either meet or exceed what's recommended. And then, you're correct, over at the jail, we purchased and installed several, they're referred to as air scrubbers, because that was one of the areas where there was, quite a few cases. And as you recall from the meetings, we work very closely with the health department, environmental health, on their recommendations for dealing with any issues that we might have.
Okay, so that's where we're at right now?
So,
is there any plans for any other buildings other than the jail?
no, not that I'm aware of, right, Joe, because the other buildings, it's been determined that the systems that we have with the fresh air exchanges that we use, that it's adequate. The cases at the jail had escalated there for a short period of time, so there was a concern there, and that's why we took extra measures over there.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner Charles again, and then Commissioner Powell again.
Thank you. So, a strategic goal of Oakland County is the development of a sustainability plan. Within the fiscal year 2023 facilities departmental budget or through the building improvement fund, what specific projects will the department undertake to achieve the strategic goal, and how will that service the residents of Oakland County? I hope that's clear.
It's clear, fairly clear anyway. So I think Aaron spoke to this yesterday, but you know that we've been involved in an effort with a consultant to help us develop a environmental sustainability plan for the campus, right, for our grounds and our facilities. I know Erin, right, I don't want to speak for her, but in her role, she's tasked with two things, right? Focusing on environmental sustainability for our campus and our grounds, which we work very closely with her on. But then she also is, tasked with working with other communities outside of our campus here. So I can only speak to, what we're working on and what our plans are for our facilities and our grounds here. We have within the past year, we've formed a facilities management green team, which Aaron is a part of. We've had discussions with some of you about some of the things that we want to do. We've really been doing small things here and there, low-hanging fruit that we have the funding for and can do now. But really, we're waiting for that finalized recommendation from AECom before we can, package things together, prioritize them, and then seek the funding that we need to carry those out. I can tell you that every new request that we get for a project or any type of maintenance that we're doing, we're definitely looking through all of those through a sustainability lens and implementing what we can at that time that will help us achieve our sustainability goals.
So, Madam Chair, and I appreciate that response, I still just feel like it's just so slow. I mean, I think you just talked about snail pace. I mean, the planet's burning now, and I know we're waiting on AECom to give us plans, but I just feel like there's certain things that seem like they should be low-hanging fruit that we can say to the community, we hired this sustainability officer, and we've done at least A, B, and C. As of right now, like I said yesterday, to the chagrin of some, that the community isn't seeing that. And they were already up in arms about us even hiring or making that position in the first place. So I just want to make sure that it's almost like the unfunded mandate. Let's make sure that we provide the scaffolding that's important. And as an aside, I didn't know Ms. Cattell was working with other CVTs. We've got work to do right here at the county. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Powell, did you have something else you wanted to add?
Yes, 2 questions. Well, first, you said we got 45 buildings and 2 million worth of land space to, is that what you said?
About 2 million square feet of office space. Yep, I think we have about 600 acres of land that we maintain.
Okay.
Not counting the parks.
I was going to say, not counting
Not counting the parks, yeah.
Okay. What is driving the year-over-year increase in rate per square footage for building space allocation costs? That's one question. And then the second one is, what percentage of the building space cost allocation rate is related to utility costs?
So, Joe, I don't know if you want or can address that. And Kyle, I know that there's an adjustment, right, that we're doing with, is there an adjustment we're doing with building charges to be in line with what we need to be for like a mandate or an industry standard? Am I not making sense?
And if y'all don't know that right now offhand for time, y'all can email it.
Inflationary increases, but Joe was probably more on the
Yeah, the square foot rate increases has a lot to do with wages, increased material costs over the years, because we look at all the actual costs, and that gets averaged out. A lot of the costs are up. Everybody knows that, so that gets rolled into those square footage costs. It's the actuals, the work that we do, and put the effort in the materials and the staffing in those buildings. Your question on what part of that, utilities is, the 3 utilities are probably our biggest, next to personnel. Part of those rates are utilities, being electric and gas are the top 2, followed by water would be the next as far as a percentage.
Okay, and then now that we are coming out of COVID-19, you may have answered this, but I'm just asking. And as presented in this recommended budget, a potential for the $9 million of projects in the capital improvement plan to be undertaken in fiscal year 2023. How many of those projects are you anticipating to go beyond the planning phase of fiscal year 2023?
Okay, so I want to make sure that I heard and understood your question correctly. So of the list of projects that are being proposed for fiscal year 2023, how many of those do we plan on starting or completing by the end of that fiscal year
To go beyond
to go beyond.
the 2023.
If I could, I'd really like to get back to you on that, because I
That's
would
fine.
have to look through the list of each of those projects and, you know, and
that's fine, you
work with
can-
the group to try to estimate that timeline for
Okay,
those.
that's fine. It's just,
Yep.
it's the question. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other commissioners? Commissioner Cavell, and then I have a couple of questions
You
too.
didn't have to sigh before saying it. Jeez, Gwen.
No, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. First, Commissioner Charles, to your thing about sustainability, there are people on the other side of Telegraph that know all about the Michigan Saves program that would be funded by ARPA that Aaron has been trying to get off the ground for a year. So I'd love to talk to you offline about how we can work with the people on the other side of Telegraph about that. The other thing is for you all. So speaking of sustainability, the sustainability office was reporting to the county executive, but now it'll be part of your department?
No,
You're
no, I know
adding-
it's a little confusing,
Yeah.
but what Aaron's office has requested will be funded from the same pot of money where our funding comes from.
Okay.
But we have our own separate categories.
Okay.
So you'll see what she's requested in our recommended budget. But if approved moving forward, it will, you know, she'll clearly be responsible for hers, and we'll clearly be responsible for us, and there will be a way to track those separately.
So the Office of Sustainability will still be independent and report directly to the county executive?
Correct, yes.
Okay, well then, just priming you then, I would like to know why the DEI office is going to become subservient to
It's
HR.
not. It's the same setup.
Okay.
It's still in the office of the executive, but the budget, we put some of her extra requests in the budget. Same thing will happen, become a program manager.
Right. Don't want to do, yeah, I'd like to talk about that more. So then the budget for Aaron's staff that she requests are working under you? No, they're working under her.
It's just a budget.
Yep, correct. You know, so we have our Department of Facilities Management. She has her Office of Environmental Sustainability. And it just so happens that the funding for those comes out of this
Yeah.
same pot of money, and that's the pot of money that we're discussing, and that's why both of our requests are shown here, but categorically, her funding will be
Got it.
separate. We're two,
Okay.
like, we work very, very closely together in everything that we
Yeah.
do, obviously, because of the overlap there, but funding-wise, positions, reporting, that's all completely separate.
So then, the people that are listed for your budget are just from where like the dollars are coming from, which bank account basically, but Aaron will still be the one telling them what to do and how to do their job, not you.
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Okay. If there aren't any other commissioner questions, I had a few. You would expect I would, I think. Let's talk about the courts first. I have two questions. One is there a plan to help the probate court, who has come in every year and said, we don't have space? And they were just telling us about how they're now putting their records in the basement, and that's causing problems for their people and so on. So are you talking directly with the probate court about their needs for the future? Or are they just out there again for another year? You know, they come and tell us about it, but nothing seems to move. And I probably don't even know what question I'm really asking, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But
So before I respond.
I'd like to
April,
respond
was there
to
something you
them.
wanted to say? Or
Probate or district?
Because probate was just in here mentioning
Probate,
that.
right.
Yeah. Yeah, I can tell you that we are not ignoring anyone, right? If they're suggesting that, you know, they've requested that we look at their space and help them come up with plans, that is not the case. Are they in a situation where maybe they need more space? Yes, I think so. Again, when COVID arrived and we started taking a look at all of our spaces, that space became a part of what we looked at, and it's a part of, the overall assessment for that building. They've never, as far as I know, have come to us with a request and any type of funding to support that and asked us to do something, and we've told them no.
So how does that happen? Because they're one group that's that way, but I think there are some other groups that have come to us and said, we have longer-term needs, but, so who puts that plan together? Is that something, that they would bring to you? Here's what we need, do they go find somebody for $5,000 to draw a plan, or how does that happen?
So typically how it happens is, if a department has a need for modifying their space in one way or another, they will put in a request for us to look at that, and that's, falls under Jason and his planning and engineering group.
Okay.
That will be assigned to one of his architects or engineers, and they will work with that group to come up with plans to accommodate their needs. Based on those plans, a rough cost estimate, a budget cost estimate would be put together. And then, depending on the department, depending on the situation, the next step would be to try to identify available funding. Sometimes, the departments, depending on, where they fall in the structure, may be required to bring the funding. Sometimes we can try to fit that into the capital improvement program if there's enough funding in there. Typically that's how it happens. And a lot of times, Jason's group spends a lot of time working with departments and designing things that, that get hung up because, it doesn't move past the identifying the funding part of it.
Okay. So our recommendation would then be to the probate department to talk to you about what they think they need. And if they haven't been talking with you, that's a hole, I think. That's a disconnect that hasn't been happening. So I'll get back to them and say that we did mention it and that.
And I want to clarify, too. I mean, I don't want to say that, they have not communicated or reached out to us. I mean,
Right.
I would have to spend a little bit of time and talk to Jason and go back and take a look at the requests that they've actually sent. I mean, they know very well to contact us. And,
Sure.
And we have done some improvements for them, many of them small, but I think what they're looking to do is something very large scale that will have a huge impact on their space over there. And I think a lot of it stems around like what they're required to store as far as files, right?
Right.
So that's a very large project. And again, admittedly, we're not going to move very quickly on a project like that, knowing that, the whole building has been assessed and there's a lot of shells that might have to be moved around in order to make that happen, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I know we've looked at that space before. It's limited, but up until now, we've been limited on the available space to actually allow them to spread out, without short of putting on an addition to the building. Now we're realizing that based on the way we are working, that we might be able to consolidate, and that could result in more space available within the building to allow them to spread out, and that's what we've been working on.
Okay. You won't forget probate as part of that.
I won't forget pro.
The other question is about the court building up in Clarkston. Nobody's talked to us about that this time, but it comes up every budget year that it's an inadequate space for what it's got to do. So is there a plan for what's going on up there?
So I can address that. April, did you want to, or do you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have been working with Plant Moran as well, who has done an in-depth, extensive study of their existing space. And as timing would have it, that was also part of the meeting and the discussion that we had this morning with the executive leadership team. to talk about what their findings were, and then some potential options. And again, that meeting ended just a few hours ago. So I can tell you that it's been worked on, it's on our radar, it's definitely one of our higher priority things that we're looking at.
Good, good, because it comes up every year. Okay, I'm not going to delay this because I don't want us to get behind. Motor pool and electric charging stations and all of that, I'm just going to throw that out there, that we want to just put in electric charging stations, as many as we can, as fast as we can around here. And if we can find granting partnerships and that sort of thing, let's do that, as well as, converting the fleet to hybrids and all of that as much as we can, as quickly as we can. But you all know that, and you're doing that, so I'm not going to belabor that.
Yeah, thank you for recognizing that. We have close to 900 vehicles, and we would love it if right now we could purchase 900 vehicles. I think
Right.
you know that we have some limitations, some hurdles, right? We currently have 3. I drove one over here today. It's in the parking lot. We use the other to deliver all of our mail or pick up our mail. There's one at Children's Village. I believe we have 5 charging stations. We are limited right now on the availability of EVs, and the other hurdle is simply being able to acquire EVs that meet our needs, right? We have some pretty heavy equipment. Todd, I think you mentioned that there are none right now that are rated for patrol.
For pursuit, that's correct.
For
Oh, is
pursuit.
that right?
And
There is
and
not a
large-
hybrid that's rated for pursuit yet.
Yep. And a large portion,
Hybrid
a large portion of our fleet is, of course, the sheriff's
Sheriff's,
office.
yeah.
And then as far as the charging stations, we are working on a comprehensive plan. We just don't want to onesie twosie it. There are many different charging stations out there. We've been exploring all of the different options. We're putting together a campus-wide plan for it.
Good.
And I just want to mention, too, even if someone gave me a huge pot of money today and said, start putting in these charging stations, there are challenges, right? So, we're working very closely with Aaron. We have really large sustainability goals that we're working towards, which would include electrifying many of our buildings, right? Any new construction that we're doing or renovations, we're actually electrifying them because it's the most efficient and best for the environment. So the discussions that we're having with our engineers and with DTE is, we want to electrify our buildings. We want to provide these charging stations. Can our infrastructure support that? And that there's going to be some hurdles there. So I can assure you that we are working on it very extensively. It's a very high priority. We share the same feelings you do, and we're working towards that. We wish it could happen quicker, but there's a lot of behind the scenes things that have to be done in a very thoughtful way.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any other questions that I think we couldn't do offline. So with that, I am going to thank you all for coming and for the work that you do. And, Marcia wanted me to remember to do one thing, thank you, and she's right. And that is, first of all, I wanted to say I thought the grounds look really beautiful coming in here the last few days. They're just really great. And especially to Mark, that we love the Rose Garden. About 2 weeks ago, I drove by it, and it was just glowing with yellow flowers. It was just gorgeous. And we really like it. It's a great enhancement to the building. So, and Marcia found a bench. So
We're going to be installing that in the next few weeks.
it's great. It's beautiful out there. So thank you to all of you for all the work that you do. Now, if you could make this room not quite so cold, we'd really appreciate it.
Yeah, just that. It's as cold as hell.
Sorry.
I know.
Wanted to make sure everybody stays away.
Arctic wave here.
No. Yeah, we stay in the
awake already.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Glad I brought the sweater.
The sheriff didn't submit one, so we're.
Yes.
All right, next up is the Board of Commissioners. We're going to take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, they're trying to put me on medicine to make it better.
I told Patty she should have the whole team sit up there with her.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess it.
Thanks, you guys. I don't want to be too hard on you, but you know, we want you moving along. Yeah. And I appreciate the band.
Yeah, it's beats the alternative. I'm 6 feet under, I have both hands and feet. I'd rather have thumbs in. So much better when you're watching. I know.
Okay. All right. I am calling the meeting of the Board of Commissioners back to order.
Everything we do.
And our next organization to come before us for the budget hearings is our very own favorite Board of Commissioners. So Patty Dibb, our Chief of Staff, is going to fill us in on all the good stuff from the Board of Commissioners this year.
Absolutely, thank you. So I just wanted to start by saying the last time I was here, a year ago, I was pretty new on board. So I had only been here since April, and Kyle had asked me to prepare last year's budget within the first 2 weeks that I was actually on board. So I appreciated his patience with me and your patience with me, and I feel a lot more confident presenting to you this year. I've had my job described as akin to an air traffic controller, a train person who conducts trains, but I like to think of it as a bridge. So I feel like I'm the bridge between the staff and commissioners and maybe the commission and the public. So I enjoy my job, and I really have to thank all of you for being welcoming and open and giving me a little bit of a pass when I'm maybe thinking of a different situation, and utilizing my knowledge from there. But it's been a really productive year, and I appreciate all your patience. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the staff, because they're great. They literally adapted to a person who was radically different than what they were used to, just by very nature of everything, and a new style, and they just rolled with it. They gave me assistance, and hopefully I've given them assistance. And they've been open to learning and open to change, as have all of you, because just look in front of you. Look how far we've come. Last year, I previewed, in a month, we're going to be all electronic. We're going to be voting by devices, and all of you went, what? And look at this. Now, prompt the vote. That's no big deal. You know exactly what to do, and it's working great. And we have our vote display in the boardroom, and you're coming along so great. And really, that was a big learning curve. And I think I told you at this time last year, don't worry, everything will be okay, and it'll take us a year, and we're not even to a year, and look how great you're doing.
Yep.
So I'm just really proud of everyone, and again, a shout out to the staff as well, because they've embraced the team concept, which is what I'm all about, and they're just wonderful staff. So I just wanted to get that out there and let everyone know how much they're appreciated, both you as commissioners and the staff as well. So I'll just briefly go over the past year. We've done a lot of clarification of what we're doing, why we're doing it, and streamlining our processes, and also kind of getting our processes down on paper so that there can be, again, with the team concept, if someone is out, nothing's going to slip through the cracks, because we can cover those things that need to be done always. We, as I mentioned, adopted our countywide agenda management system. This board staff trained the entire county. So it was not, we didn't bring anyone in from the outside. We didn't depend upon IT. We did it ourselves. So that means that every single person who is utilizing Civic Clerk, and that's everybody, because that's how we receive our items, they have been trained by someone on this board staff. So our staff, again, has been amazing. They've become experts on this new system, and we're really doing well. We've also reimagined our board space. So you've seen that as you entered from the side entrance. You kind of peek in my office. I've now come up into the 21st century, which is exciting. And we have more in store. So we've completed phase 1 of what we imagined to be the new look of the BOC. So we are actually leading kind of the county with our concept of having shared space. Some people might call us guinea pigs, but I like to say we're first adopters. So we're doing really great with that, and the staff, again, is being very adaptable and open and cooperative and collaborative. So we're coming along great. So the year ahead, I'll just move to that. The requested 4% cuts were made last year, so we were not required to make any additional cuts. And I believe that a budget should be an action plan. So in our budget, which was, it's as presented to you is how it was requested. So we did not dip into general funds for any additional funding, and we were able to achieve what we want to do in the upcoming year by reallocation of current funding. So our budget supports the pursuit of our goals that were submitted, and I think you all have those goals listed out, 1, 2, and 3. Goal 1 was supporting commissioners. Goal 2 was supporting staff in development and professional growth. And Goal 3 was expanding our reach and our public engagement and access. So our plans are there to utilize, and they exist within the budget as presented. The LRC, the Legal Resources Center, will have its final sunset on June 30th in 2023. And we have one remaining employee. She has been doing other stuff as well, so I talk about adaptable. Someone who's spent an entire career in one mode has really expanded and provided a lot of assistance to us. So, but she will retire, actually, in 6 months, June 30th. The space revamping is just about done, so that kind of adds to our available space, but we also gave some space from LRC to the Indigent Defense, so Pete Mena's team. And the funding from the LRC was reallocated to support the BOC goals. So you have in front of you a historical commission request. Unfortunately, I didn't know about this request when I submitted the budget to Kyle and his team. So they are asking for some additional funding. We did raise their funding allocation, but it wasn't quite enough to support this request. So I would just ask that you consider amending our budget during budget wrap-up to support this request, which is to expand reach and information into the communities. So if you would want to review that and consider that. And then our board special projects line item is $351,266. And then if you wanted to do what had been done for this year's budget, you would consider maybe an additional allocation and amendment to the non-departmental line item. So is there any specific questions? I just kind of blew through that.
Start with Commissioner Powell, and then Commissioner Long, and then Commissioner Cabell.
First question is, what does the BOC's hybrid work plan look like?
Oh, glad you asked. So we have submitted a plan to HR, which has been approved, and what we will have is 5-day-a-week coverage always for our offices, but it will look different because we'll have rotating employees. You've noticed that I've mentioned collaborative workspace, and so we have some employees who are committing to a 3-day-a-week work plan. So that's 3 days a week on site. Well, they're 5-day-a-week work plan, but 3 days on site, and that means they will have a dedicated workspace. And those employees who are committing to 2 days a week, and again, this is on average because sometimes our, circumstances will require everyone to be on site all week long, but this is a general thing. But the 2-day-a-week people will share space. And we have the setup with our equipment and our cell phones to be very flexible. And we will utilize our space here in the legislative study and also in the LRC, which has some workstations.
Okay, and my next question is, how can commissioners best utilize staff services? I'm always questioning, and I just thought maybe you could give us a whole wrap-up, because I know I'm one that always tap you on the shoulder for something.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just communicate. Again, I mentioned I feel like I'm the bridge, so please come to me, and I will connect you with the right staff. And if you communicate your goals, we will figure out a way to make those goals happen. Much like your
Like I've done with you. Yep. So just to share with my commissioners, I've come in, I've sat with Patty, I said, hey, I'm drowning, I need some help and assistance, and she will let me know what they can help with, what they can't help with. She takes it off my hands, she distributes it among the staff, and it's a straight execution for me. So thank you, and the staff know I appreciate them. They know I support them because, again, I'm going to say it again, I'm support staff first. So thank you for that, and that is my 2 questions that I had.
Okay, Commissioner Long.
Okay, do you have some of this budget? So just on the professional services, the 1 year we actually spent 68, that was COVID, 68,000. What is it up to now, 388? What is included in that for professional services? I can tell you the line item. It's 731458, page 186.
I actually have notes on that.
Yeah, I just wondered what it included. I think probably that was the actual because it was COVID.
Yeah,
21.
it's contracts.
Then it goes back down in 23. So what's 388? I just wonder because look how it goes up. If you guys are looking on that page, 363, 388, then it goes back down to 63,000.
Well, some of the things covered under it is lobbying services, or actually, it's what we want covered under there. I know that there wasn't it the COVID communication? Yeah.
Yeah, that is all 2022.
Yeah.
So you're going down to, I was thinking it was COVID stuff because it was 60,
Right.
and then 22, and then you're going back down in the 23 to 63. So.
Yeah, and we're going to cover our AV support services through professional services. It's our legal services.
Okay, and then is the professional service annual audit, that's what we pay for our audit for the county, $235,000?
Right.
I mean, I know they do a lot of work, but that's good. That's a good job. Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay, Commissioner Cabell.
Yeah,
And then
same,
Commissioner McGilvery.
same path that Commissioner Long's on. So, right, you mentioned the special projects. So, what we actually spent was $786,000. What's budgeted for the upcoming year is $306.
Oh, I see.
So that's a big cut.
It's not actually a cut. It's because some of it comes out of non-departmental.
So
So it's transferred out of you had 1.3 million in
Yep.
non-departmental special projects, and so some of it came out of there.
So it's not a cut. It's just coming from a different pot.
Right.
Okay. Okay. Also,
Hi. Hi. Can anyone hear me?
yes.
Hi. This is Ebru, and some of the for the special projects that were performed last year were due to like CARES Act activity for like maybe the touchless bottle stations in the high schools. The school breakfast program.
Gotcha.
Welcoming week. So there's several special projects that were performed last year, and that's why, a lot of that was appropriation from CARES Act money, and that's why you're seeing like a large drop in special projects from last year's actuals for fiscal 21 and comparing it to like fiscal 22 and then the recommended budget. It's because most of the special projects are usually appropriations lately from either CARES or ARP or from non-departmental.
Okay. Gotcha.
I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you, Ibram. And then I like the leading questions from the staff because it's our staff that wrote these. how much of a pay raise can, no, wait, sorry, I misread. So what about professional development? I don't think that was asked yet, but yeah.
Well,
Should
again.
we send more staff to conferences?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's a goal, and that has been accounted for in our budget. But just so you know, that we do have, well, Pam graduated from Leadership Oakland, and we have others, which is a great thing. She's also a national parliamentarian, so, I mean, that's great. We've got Mike actually doing the NACO Leadership Academy right now.
Okay.
And we've got Mike, this Mike?
This mic, okay.
Uh-huh. We have, that Mike is a member of the Government Financial Officers Association. We have Megan going to the Women's Municipal Leadership Program. She was accepted into that program. Sarah is part of the SEMCOG Communicators Network. We have people using our tuition reimbursement benefit from the county. We have others who are either already or about to be enrolled in some professional organizations to not only gain knowledge, you know, for them, but also to represent Oakland County. And the staff has been participating more in some regional groups, the Tri-County Summit Planning Committee, SEMCOG, MAC. We're utilizing those different organizations that we're already members of. And we've got an internal promotion policy now, and hoping to be able to help people advance within our department in different ways. Thank you for that question.
Thank you.
Commissioner McGilvery, followed by Commissioner Charles.
Couple of questions. Funding requests that the county executive's recommended budget did not include. Did you have any in there that got turned down?
No, as requested is how it's presented. We were able to shift around within, you know, because of the closing of the LRC. So we were able to reallocate and divert some of those fundings. So we really stayed within budget. The only thing is that I didn't have the information about the historical commission request, as I mentioned earlier. So that's not included, so that would require an amendment. And then if you were going to consider doing the $1 million non-departmental special projects thing, so that's not here.
Okay. Just one concern of mine. When I came to the board here in 2010, they used to have a department directory that listed everybody in the county. And we don't have that anymore. And I, being a person that is not tech savvy, that can go to the website and find a phone number or do this or do that, I'd really like to see a department directory printed, even if it's once every couple of years. I mean, it doesn't have to be every year because there's not that much change in it, but with names, phone numbers, and emails of the employees so that we can get in touch with them. Is that a possibility?
I can check into it. I know the clerk provides their directory, but you're thinking something more comprehensive, like with employee names and numbers?
Yeah, probably. I mean, if I have a question, for example, about something in a court, who is it, you know, who handles what department kind of thing, that if at all possible.
Okay, so maybe like a quick reference list, like for key department.
Yeah.
We can look into that, and yeah, sure, I'll make the note.
And if you need an example of the old directory, I happen to have one at home because I was given that when I first came to office here, so.
Remember that.
Really?
But that is a good point.
Okay, yeah.
People don't know where to go either.
Well, and we got a technology gap, so.
Yeah, you calling me stupid.
No.
I think they said it's user
You got a lot of
error,
people
right?
that don't know how to navigate this online. Yeah. Yes, no, I'm not saying that.
Let's just all remember when Gary called me a young snot earlier today. It just comes back around. Karma is something, huh, Gary? Mm-hmm.
Still turn yet? Oh.
I'll definitely look into that.
Okay.
His point was,
You done, Gary?
yeah,
Yeah,
to have to go and find, yeah.
through.
Okay, is that it, Commissioner McGivray? Okay, next up, Commissioner Charles.
Yeah, thanks. How has the Board of Commissioners contributed towards reaching the county's overall sustainability goals?
Love to answer that. We have a decreased footprint.
Nice.
And we, we relinquished some space in the LRC, but also in the Troy office to somebody else who was going to use it more often. So we have also decommissioned a lot of equipment that was unnecessary and not really being used. So we've done that. Less paper, less energy use. With our hybrid work policy, we keep people off the roads, and we're using virtual meetings more.
That's great.
I think that's it.
Thank you. Madam Chairperson, I did want to mention, because I've talked to Patty about this already, but I didn't bring it to your attention. But to what has just been said about accessibility on our website, and I don't mean like ADA accessibility, I'm talking about in terms of, I wonder where to find information about this. And so, for example, someone called me from Valdosta, Georgia, about our regulations and policies about environmental projects. Like, so who do they need to talk with? And I was like, oh, I'm sure that's easy to find. So I started looking on the web on our site, and it wasn't. And so, I mean, our only teeth that we have are our resolutions, our various things that we voted on. And I just would love to see us allocate what's necessary. Patty's fully aware of my dismay with that. And then I mentioned it in EDI today about timestamps, because, and I know we talked about it, I just want it to be clear that, there's, when you add stuff to a website, like, maybe there was an agenda or a packet that was posted at 9:05 this morning. Maybe it was posted again at noon. I know if I'm having a hard time identifying what and when, then of course the community is too. So that's something I think comes in under our wheelhouse, either that or the clerk, but I still don't know who leads that. So just putting that out there.
Do you mind if I?
No, please.
Oh, okay. So internally, we have that addressed when you go in through board view, through the commissioner view. But we can look into, doing some sort of fix for that. And then for the codification of resolutions and proclamations, we have a project in that was just ranked on Monday with the IT team, how they do their projects. And there is a cloud-based system that I'm super familiar with that will allow us to put on our page by year a listing of all the resolutions and all the proclamations adopted that is searchable by date, by keyword, and also that you can see. So it's kind of a really great tangible listing of what you've done all year, and it's good for the public to know, it's good for you to be reminded, and also it's good for the internal departments to be able to look and see if their resolution was adopted, what happened with it, and how everything happened with it. So so that is very close to being done.
Yeah, that's good. Cool. Anybody else have any questions? I want to talk a little bit about communication. So you have a communication staff, and then yesterday we had 5 members of the BOC executive and all of their communications. And my question relates to how do they relate and work together? And how can we be more timely about getting information out there that we can share? Because sometimes, like, we'll get a letter or we'll get an email that says this great thing has happened that the board has done. But to really convert it to, let's throw it on social media, it's not coming necessarily in the right format. Now, I know some of what comes out is we'll get a letter that says, oh, I just posted something on Facebook and click here and you can share it and so on. But I'm wondering if there's more we can do across synergies from your organization and theirs and all of what they have available, and educate the public kinds of stuff on things that are important to us. right? And what does the Board of Commissioners do? How many of you have knocked a door where somebody said, well, what's a commissioner do?
All the time.
All the time. Because people don't know what we
shit,
do,
yeah.
but we're doing a lot, and we're spending a lot of money, and we're making difference in the community. I'm just not sure we're there yet with how easy it is for each of us to take what we've done and communicate it. Marketing what we're doing. I think there's a lot more we could do. So
our communication staff should be considered the central hub for us. And then Sarah and her team, as needed for graphics assistance or other type of outreach, they can contact the OPC. And they are, they participate in weekly meetings, and so they're very in with that team as well.
Good.
You should have received today, as a matter of fact, it's been a goal of Sarah and her team to constantly try and improve things. So you will have received a survey as to what you think, just what you think about certain things. It's a questionnaire. So it's good timing because you will have received it earlier today in your email. And so I hope you do, answer that or speak with Sarah, talk to her. But yeah, we're constantly trying to educate the public, and that is one of the goals of all the staff, is to make sure that the public knows the important job and duty of the Board of Commissioners, and to constantly try to get that word out there.
Commissioner Powell.
Just to piggyback on the marketing piece, I have before requested, like, for example, state reps pass a bill, and it's a post that'll be created like, hey, this state rep secured this amount of money for this project, and it's literally boom, 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 just them three with your face on it. The State House does that for their team, so I've asked about it, and that's just one thing that I wanted to visit. In having us do when we secure or we have projects that we have, we secure funding or we helping countywide, it's something that we all can post on our social medias. And then, I spaced on one other thing, but just overall with the marketing, what is it that our staff will be able to do, even if it's upon request, because I know our commissioners, districts is different, but just helping us with that. In a mailer. I know we do the online thing, but is there a mailer? I've asked about this before, that we could send out either once or twice a year for our districts, just to kind of, again, enlighten the public on what we do, because they don't know. And if mailer is too much, then can we get them individual postings that at least we can periodically put on our page to say, we secured this, we did this, or this is going on, or call to action. I don't know, but those are some of the things that I know for a fact that state reps do. Yes, they get a bigger budget and all of this, but for the most part, I think that some of that stuff can be implemented here to help on a marketing phase for all of us.
And we actually did build some additional funding into the budget coming up for planned Facebook ads and other communication vehicles.
Okay.
So that will be addressed, and it's been built in there specifically for those communication needs.
Got it, thank you.
We didn't have it before, so.
Oh, that's why. But I at least know the chair. He know I didn't talk about this. Because I came from the State House, and we market our state reps very well in their districts, and I want the same, if not, I know we can't get everything state reps get, but.
Look at the state reps.
They look, they know, they remember, they put mailers out and stuff, and posts, and, well, they were serving in a different time, too, so mailers was the key with us. In your time, it wasn't necessary.
Pre-9/11, we were transitioning.
Well, in any case, we are planning for that.
I was
So.
on staff. Not Chuck Moss, but
It's alive and well, Charlie.
So it's just new things that a lot of other governmental entities that I am seeing that's what they're doing as far as from the marketing standpoint, just to get information out of what we're doing.
It's
So
in the
thank you.
budget, so therefore it's in the action plan.
Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? I think that's all I had for you.
We appreciate our staff. I just want to
Yes,
say
we
that.
do.
Thank you. I know y'all all hear us.
You make us look good, that's for
Yes, they
sure.
do. Yes, you all do.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm having 100 requests. They help me out tremendously.
Sheriffs are due here at 3:25. So,
Yeah, they coming in.
all right.
Coming.
The black truck ain't pulled up though yet. The
Black truck may not come today.
The SWAT
Black truck
pulley?
not coming today?
Maybe, maybe not.
He usually come in the
Yeah, he
protest,
does.
right? He usually do his own work.
Welcome to the Sheriff's Department. You are the last group we're talking to today before our board meeting, which is going to be lively, I'm sure. So you are scheduled for 35 minutes. We're going to try and stick to that, but, you know, you'll have a few minutes to make a presentation to us about where you're at right now and what you want to tell us, and then I'll open it up to questions from the group. So welcome. Please introduce yourselves, and because we are on the air and all that.
Well, hello.
We have a big red light.
See the sign? On air.
On air, Mike Live.
WKRP in Cincinnati.
That's right.
I was going to say that date's a
We just lost one of those actors, too. Somebody from that show just died a week or two ago.
Oh.
I was reading, yeah.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Mike Bouchard, the Oakland County Sheriff. We've got our undersheriff, Childs, and the person with the most brains at the table on our side. You guys have all the brain power, but here, it's got to be Gaya. She keeps us in line and makes sure our numbers match. So
We already dragged her into a session earlier today, so.
Yeah.
So on the fly, can you log in right now? Okay.
That's my bad. We're super lucky to have her to our team. She's smart and capable and sweats bullets over everything. So we're trying not to have her have a breakdown these days because she works so hard. And we got an amazing team that's here. Obviously, we've got the, I presume, I don't know if the camera goes over there or not, but we've got Major Wondrak, Major Perry, and Captain Schneider is here as well.
Welcome.
So I'll try to abbreviate, so, leave more time for questions. Obviously, last budget, we worked with the administration. We cut about 1.6 million, the equivalent of about 16 positions. This time, we worked again with the administration to come up with a budget that works, and worked very well and closely with the executive's office. That's the budget you have before us. We were asked to talk a bit about our top goals. So the top goals that we kind of envision, you've probably heard this before, training center, dispatch center, I've said this a lot, but you've seen terrible police outcomes around the country, sometimes in their interactions with the community and sometimes on their response to tragic events. And whether it's Minneapolis or whether it's Uvalde, in the end of the day, a lot of that's training and it's hiring. So if we hire better and train better, we get better police outcomes. Obviously, we're humans, and we're always going to have some outcomes that aren't what we hoped in the kind of business that we're in, where there's split-second decisions made, but better hiring and better training. So hiring is a huge challenge for us. We're still down tremendously. We're still forcing a lot of overtime. People are still burning out. We've had, we get a sheet when they leave, retire, whatever, and on a number of the sheets it said, I just can't take the forced overtime anymore. I have no predictability with our kids and with my life. And so we're pushing hard, and we appreciate the commission's support to help us on that front, because we want to help our people in this, not only dealing with terribly stressful times, the added stress of having to work a lot of overtime constantly for the last 2 years has been an incredible stressful thing. And I can't tell you, I've never been more prouder of people to work with in my life than watching them go through these last 2 years. So training center and a state-of-the-art dispatch center, EOC, whether it's co-located or not, that'll all be up to you all, whether we and how we do this. But a training center, we've never had a purposefully built training center in the history of Oakland County. And again, if you look at, for example, Oxford's juxtaposed between Parkland and Uvalde, and that's a training issue. That's a policy issue. They have to have the policy that says they have to respond in a certain way. Our policy is you go in, there's no hesitation, no delay, find the threat, period. If you're alone or if you're in two or if you're in fours, doesn't matter, go in. It comes with our job. That's what our folks are trained to do. That's what they did. And when you put it in the middle between Parkland, where they didn't, and Uvalde, where they didn't, we all saw the terrible outcome. I mean, we lost, tragically, 4
amazing souls at Oxford, but he still had 18 live rounds. And based on everything that I've seen that will probably come out during trial, he would have continued until we did confront him. So I'm convinced that they saved lives that day. So training center, where we can push them more, push them harder. And if they make a mistake, they make it in training, and we go again. You know, you saw that tragedy where the woman, police officer, said taser, 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 and then shot and killed a man. So she, in her head, that's what we say when you're going to deploy a taser. You let everyone know by saying taser, 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 I'm deploying a taser. So obviously in her head, she thought, I'm about to deploy my taser, and she had her firearm. That's training. Where do you have it on your belt? How do you differentiate? How do you verify what you have in your hand before you present? Training, training, training. Terrible tragedy. Lost life and on both levels. You know, the person that was shot and the woman that shot that person will obviously never be the same. So, number one, training center, dispatch center, recruiting and retention, which I already kind of spoke to. That's our number. You know, I say number two, but it's really, you know, they're all neck and neck. Our people are our most important commodity. If we don't take care of our people, then, you know, shame on us and shame on me in particular. So recruiting and retention to make sure that we give them an environment that has that training and the tools so that they can come home at night, and to give them an environment where they feel valued, appreciated, and not like constantly forced into work and not have a personal life. You know, we think it's important for folks to have a balance, that they have a life outside of here. Number three, that equipment and training keeps coming back, but to respond to all threats and all hazards, we've got a lot of equipment that's aging, and obviously there's been a lot of new developments and threats that you've seen around the country. Tragically in Highland Park outside of Chicago, where a rooftop shooter took on a parade. Our request for extra support and assistance at large community events has spiked. You know, we put out an email to all our partners, all of our chiefs, and said, obviously we're always aware of threats, but this is, sadly, when one thing happens, people copy it. So this is now in the minds of a lot of people, and we need to collectively and together increase our diligence on those kinds of threats as well, and how can we assist. And so we have put into place a program called Operation Overwatch, which involves our helicopter assets, so that when you have a parade or a large-scale event, that we can give some of that coverage. And we're also going to be using our drones. Drones are good. They give you situational awareness, but they don't give you the ability to do anything other than say, oh, there's a problem. Well, the helicopter gives us tactical response that I won't be specific on, because that's not something you necessarily want to broadcast.
Right.
But it gives us the ability to do things. The request for that from already has come in pretty dramatically. Ferndale, Royal Oak, Birmingham, Milford, they've already requested aviation support for a number of events in the very near future. So we're trying to figure that all out, because as you know, we have one helicopter down. How to, you know, cycle crews within that aircraft and keep them on the task that we've been requested by these local police departments. And then, of course, at Dream Crews, you know, typically we have had always one chopper in the air running for that kind of threat and other kinds of threats. Now, again, since one helicopter's down, we're trying to figure out a way to rotate and hot swap the crews, and how we keep air coverage while we're doing that hot swap. We'll probably intermingle drones so that we still keep eyes on and make sure that no threats are developing. So that obviously plays into the equipment kind of thing. You know, we're now actively looking at how we move forward with 20-plus-year-old aircraft, and you know what's the best path forward, because these threats are getting, sadly worse than better on many levels. And it's interplaying. These aircraft now are interplaying. I was out at a search and rescue in Highland at the request of Milford, and tragically it turned out to be a suicide, but we were out there with, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 ATVs and probably 7 dogs, and we had horses on the way and helicopter and drones. And, the wife of the decedent, just as I hugged her, she just said, just find him. And, you hope to catch people before they are in that situation or prevent it from getting there. But once it gets there, you try to save them before it happens. And if you can, at the very least, you got to find them. So through the great efforts of our team, about, 2 in the morning or so, and I didn't have my watch with me while I was out there, but we found him, but it was tragically, he was deceased, had taken his own life. So, those are the kind of assets that we're deploying. I don't know if we got an update on the search and rescue is up dramatically. We're getting requests all across the county for a variety of things, from suicidal subjects seems to be spiking, all across the county, people going off into the woods and they're suicidal. Those have been almost a regular occurrence where search and rescue gets called out for suicidal subjects. We've been able to find some and get them in to help before they actually committed suicide. So that's been positive, but maybe it's the time, maybe it's the tension that people are feeling. Suicides just seem to be an everyday event that we're dealing with, and lots of times they go out into the wilderness. And then obviously you've got Alzheimer's patients. We're seeing more of those that, walked away and lost kids. So I don't know what the numbers are, but we'll get them to you at some point. But search and rescue is up dramatically, and we've been growing that team, and it's kind of one of those things, if you build it, they will come. And so we're definitely getting a lot more calls from other police agencies for search and rescue. I met with General Rogers. He's the 2-star commander of Michigan in the Air National Guard and National Guard, and they actually have a rubble pile training center at Camp Grayling. So I just was up with them recently during some of their exercise and looking at where there are training opportunities for our people that are unique, and that's one of those things. So we'll probably be utilizing the rubble pile kind of training going forward with search and rescue, and possibly adding a dog that could help us find somebody in a variety of situations.
Can you explain that, just what that is?
Yeah, so after 9/11, you saw obviously live on TV, a lot of us went to New York and we worked the rubble pile.
Okay.
Moving buckets, and there were people in there, potentially, hopefully at that point alive, but there were none eventually. It became more a recovery than a rescue. But you got to find them in any event. And so rescue teams, technical rescue teams, and search and rescue teams have the ability to do certain things. They're trained. Potentially can bring us some federal grants too, where we can be a regional asset for an emergency. If you have a tornado and it runs through let's say, God forbid, the big building in downtown Pontiac, and you got a rubble pile and people are in there, you got to find out where they are and get to them. And it's a search and rescue team, it's a rescue team, and it's probably going to be a specialized dog, a combination of that. So that's kind of some of our focus, is to be better trained and better prepared in an increasingly dangerous time. So updates, body-worn cameras, we're expecting delivery hopefully fairly soon. Staff members have already attended the training. Deployment will begin as soon as it arrives, as soon as it's possible. Submitted another grant application, trying to find more federal money for that program and other programs, so we're constantly on the look for ways to minimize the budgetary impact of that. One thing we have kind of learned through COVID is that we relied a lot on jail inmates for essential services. And so we learned through COVID we can't necessarily count on that, because during COVID everybody had to be segregated and locked in place. Any movement our health department and the CDC was a no-go, obviously, because of potential to spread throughout the building. And so people that used to be in jail were very much part of our program to be in the kitchen working, or sometimes at the dog shelter or community events. None of that. Can't have it anymore, to be predictable and reliable. So probably going forward, you know, as we look at some of the contracts we have, especially the food services contract, that was built into the Aramark contract, that they had a certain number of people that would be assisting them with food prep and the delivery process. So we're, obviously, that's probably going to increase when we go out for bid on the food program, as we always do when the contract comes up. We'll probably end up getting an increased cost because we can't guarantee them a certain amount of labor to do those kinds of essential services. But I would say our team and Aramark throughout the pandemic, from March of 2020 to April 14th, 22, they served almost 2 million meals. Not one meal was missed in the jail. And there were times when that was a struggle because, you can't be cooking hot meals necessarily in the kitchen, and you can't be moving it throughout the facility. So they were juggling and coming up with food boxes and pre-prepared foods and finding ways to deliver it that were within the health department recommendations, and all of the kinds of hoops that they had to jump through. And still, as our team and their team worked together to deliver, the actual number was 1,950,528 meals. That's a pretty Herculean effort. So obviously that contract will be coming up. It's probably going to be out on the street, the RFP, in the very near future. And so we'll see, you know, what companies come back. Smart communications, we, in our last effort on our IT within the facility, we obviously changed providers. We had IT Solution, but Smart Communication delivered a product and a price point, and Captain Schneider's been super on this program. We moved to inmate tablets and inmate video visitation and a host of things that helped and was critical during COVID to lessen movement and contact. And so that proceeded really well. The revenue from that, as you know, goes to fiscal services and not to our budget. So in case somebody, I think, asked that question, where's that revenue goes? It goes to fiscal services. That's kind of, I don't want to prattle on. I know there'll be a lot of questions, but.
Okay, I have Commissioner Long, followed by Commissioner Powell, followed by Commissioner Cavell.
I'm first. Well, thank you for coming, and you know I'm a huge supporter of the sheriff, the deputies, lieutenants. You know, you guys do a great job. So the one thing is, you had your budget cut last year, so your task, you didn't have one this year then, right?
We had a task. We came up with some things that we, you know, we don't have a lot of fat. So some of the things we suggested, we worked with the administration, and they went, all right, let's work through that, not do the complete task in that way, do it a different way. And so we met what the administration was looking for.
Good. And then I know the one helicopter's down. How much, I remember you guys saying how much it would take to repair that. And do we have 2 pilots?
Yeah, we have multiple pilots.
Okay.
It's the aircraft that is important, because not just, like, for example, at Dream Cruise, one's up and the other one gets up before the other one comes down, so we have constant. But outside of a large event like that, so we plan our maintenance for that, we also stagger the maintenance, because they'll have to go away for 2 or 3 or 4 days at a time, and maybe longer for, you know, some kind of maintenance. Imagine, you know, how, you know, you take your car in and they give you a loaner. Well, they're not giving us a loaner chopper, so.
But we only have one that flies, so don't we?
We only have one flying right now,
Okay.
because the other one's Texas, still going through the process of determining how bad is the damage, which
Okay, that's what I
they've
wanted
given
to
us a
ask.
preliminary number, but they won't know until they open things like gearboxes. And
Okay.
so, in any event, they're 20-year-old aircraft, and they also informed us that they're no longer going to do the training necessary for certification at Eurocopter on that style
so
aircraft,
it's
because it's so old.
So that might be something we need to look
So
into.
we're looking at whether the replacement of a Eurocopter or Bell, and who's got the best, financing, or, how can we do that? We think there's going to be the potential that, the older the aircraft, the more maintenance and the increased cost for hourly operation. A newer aircraft has lower maintenance and lower hourly cost, but they have acquisition costs. So we're hoping to have that bubble be somewhere around, not too far out of the ballpark where we're operating now.
Okay, and both of those are 20 years old, right?
Yes.
See, I think that was one of my first votes, 20, to get those helicopters.
Yeah.
But I think we need them, so
Yeah.
I'm just thinking that we gotta consider that, they probably need another one or something soon.
Yeah, well,
So-
both of them, for safety reasons, I think, are going to have to be retired. And so we're looking at what's the best way to do that and not interrupt operational coverage in the meantime. As I said, now we've had a huge increase in requests from police departments, and the ones that I just named off have asked for significant coverage before the year's out.
Okay, all right, that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Powell.
I have two questions. One is there any law for if, somebody, now that we using drones, if someone tried to shoot them down or destroy them or anything while they're in the use? Because I know they're not marked, so people know oh, this is a sheriff drone. So if they were to do that, is there any repercussions for that?
Yes, and ours are actually marked.
Oh, they are?
Yep.
Okay, so it's a sheriff, okay. I just thought, to be kind of discreet.
Ours are marked, and ours are responsive, not patrolling. So,
Okay.
you're not going to see it flying through a neighborhood, just randomly flying like a patrol car. It's responding to a call, or it's responding to an event.
Got it,
So we
okay.
have we created very clear policy guidelines, and we also, as you know, as we're building out DFR, drones as first responders in Pontiac as the first place to test it, we've already created a transparency dashboard, so you'll see when it's launched, where it went, and how long it was there, and when it came back, and you'll see the route and everything.
Okay, cool. And then my second one is more just a question as far as just how you all operate as a sheriff department. Recently, and I know y'all know a little bit about this, but recently I had a resident whose child killed her brother and her mate. And one thing that the parent brought to my attention is that she reported to the sheriff's department that her child, which is an adult though, had these guns and stuff possibly in the home. And she said that the sheriff department, for some reason, couldn't react on that, be it that it was an adult person, like her child is an adult.
Right.
Is that the case? Or usually if, I just want to elaborate on that. Just tell me how that works.
If somebody has a firearm and they're adult and legally allowed to possess that firearm.
Oh, right.
Unless there is a crime or a allegation of they're suicidal or homicidal.
You can't go in, can't bother.
Nope.
Okay, all right. I don't think she told me that little snippet, but okay. All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
Oh, that's my question.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay, next up is Commissioner Cavell.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. So first, you were talking about training. Did your training budget go up, go down, or stay flat this year? And can you tell us a little bit why?
There's two different things. We get some money from the state, and it's woefully insignificant, and we've complained with that, and we're working on that. I think, was it $85? What was MCOLS give us last year per officer? It was under $100. So
78.
Yeah, okay, 78. So imagine what kind of training you get for $78 for the year when you've got to deal with, pathogens, COVID, sensitivity, emotionally disturbed person, pit driving, firearms requalification, first aid, all the training that you have to do. That doesn't really pay for much. And then secondarily, and with the double whammy in our current circumstance, you have to take Deputy A off the line where they're patrolling a neighborhood and put them in training, which means you got to put Deputy B in that spot on overtime. So there's no backfill money from the state, and we push that on the federal level. Now, the money that we have from the county, up or down?
That's remain the same. We didn't make any changes to it, but we have multiple pots. So like the sheriff said, we have the money from the state that we use for deputy training. We have corrections officers training. We have dispatch, which actually dispatch funds we are allowed to use that for backfill. So that's kind of a blessing for that one, that we can actually, if somebody is gone, we can use the dispatch training funds to pay the backfill. And then we have some officers training in our budget. So it's kind of, and then we also get some county funds from the Fringe Benefit Fund that we can use for in-service training. So basically anything that the county HR does not provide, which for the most part they don't provide law enforcement training, that only pays for registration, not any kind of lodging or travel arrangements. So we try to utilize that as much as we can. So the lieutenant that works in, Lieutenant Workman that you work with quite a bit. So we're always kind of looking at like, hey, which pot does this fit in? So, but overall, the outside funding that we get has gone down.
So outside funding gone down, but overall budget stayed the same. But your top priorities are
Budget
training.
stayed the same in the
and
county, so there's
in
a
the county
net
budget, yeah.
reduction of our training money and training capability.
But your top priorities are training and retention.
That's certainly, yeah, right up there in the top.
Okay. I have a question about data because, as I mentioned you guys in the hallway, I'm sorry I didn't email before I was figuring it out, but recently 36 District Court came down with what likely will be bail reform precedent going forward, and so Oakland County is exposed to this. There's all this information that Kent County collects for its jail, right? It's 75 pages of data, and I could only find our annual report, which has a lot of like cool pictures and stuff, but do we collect this kind of data? And if so, is it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what's in the
Yeah,
report,
yeah.
but I'll say this about, reform. When I became the sheriff, our average daily population was north of 2,200. We had 3 campuses that we were operating, Southfield, Auburn Hills, and here in Pontiac. Those were full. And we rented 150 bed spaces in other counties. I think we had a 100-bed contract with Ingham alone. And so when I became the sheriff, I started looking at it, I said, do we need to, on first blush, you're like, we need to build a new jail. We're at our max and we're renting beds elsewhere. And the deeper we dug in it as a team, the more it became, no, we don't need to build a new jail. We need to be smarter about who's in jail. So we've actually accomplished most of what everybody's talking about around the country. Our average daily population pre-COVID was about 1,400. So we went from 2,300 to 1,400 with systemic changes internally and working with the judges. And we also pushed some legislation that gave us additional tools. And to boil it down, the philosophy that I presented our team was, you have 2 groups people were afraid of and people were mad at. People were afraid of need to be behind bars. People were mad at, we have to find alternatives that still allow them to go to work, not lose their job, and have an opportunity to get back on the right path. So that's why, we were pushing a lot of work release and tether and, supported the WHAM, weekend alternative for misdemeanors. A lot of people shouldn't be in jail, in my opinion. Having said that, if somebody commits a violent crime or has a history of violence, they ought to be in jail, in my opinion. And that's the kind of errant shot that most of these reforms have ignored. Somebody needs to be in jail and somebody doesn't. And they've kind of gone, well, nobody's going to have bail and there's some people that need to be locked up to protect the community. And there's a lot of people that don't. So we're constantly sending out letters to judges and saying, you got this person in jail right now. Can you maybe do something else with them? Can you put them on a tether? Can you put them into, some other program? And I actually met with a state representative yesterday and suggested a piece of legislation that we've been trying to accomplish for a bit that would redefine our tether program as in custody for purposes of sentencing on certain nonviolent crimes. Because some judges want, to send a message, but I'm probably getting way too deep in the weeds, but when we had work release, they would go to work so they wouldn't lose their job. We would do random checks, but we couldn't check them all because there were so many. And then when they come back, they'd end up spending the night in jail and then rinse and repeat. With Tether's technology coming farther, we can geofence that and say, you can only be at work, school, or home. And it actually has sensors that can detect if you're using alcohol and other things. So they don't need to be locked up if they're nonviolent. Monitored, sure, if, the judge wants to make sure they're on the right path, keep them working so they can pay their bills and they don't have problems with the family. And so we accomplished a lot of that, but then a ruling came down that said for the certain kinds of offenses, that doesn't constitute in custody, so therefore they couldn't use that anymore, the tether program for that. So, I'm trying to get that tweaked so we can really expand tether program and give it more people out of jail that are nonviolent. And that's something we're constantly doing. So I think we're ahead of the curve on a lot of this.
Because I couldn't find any of that data, and I just know it's going to be important if Oakland County gets sued. So that's just an FYI, or would love to hear offline.
Yeah, I'm
what you're working
sure
on.
we have whatever
Okay.
data's in there. I don't know how
Okay.
they aggregate it or sort it, but
Okay.
I'm sure we have it because this has been a process we've been going through for 20 years to get where we are. And you see a lot of other counties have never done that, and they're starting to look at that data. Macomb County is, I think, building an addition. Wayne County is building a new jail. And I'm not here before you asking for a new jail.
Right. So then, just to not put words in your mouth, but you like the idea of bail reform then, and perhaps cash bail and bonding like that can
Bail
be used more
reform,
sparingly?
As I said, absolutely, as it relates to two things.
Okay.
I've been super supportive of it long before it became a discussion. If you're a nonviolent offender with no violent history, you don't need to be behind bars.
Okay, cool. That's
been
very
there.
good to hear.
Yeah,
I appreciate
absolutely.
that.
Sure.
And then one other question I had about data is, again, looking at that stuff. On the transparency dashboard, or whatever it is that it's called, that you all have, first, it's hard to get to because it's not on the main website, so whatever you can do, Captain Schneider, about that. But the second thing, use of force, I didn't,
That
maybe
is on
I
our
missed
main
that.
website.
I
There's just so
couldn't find
many
it.
things that populate that main website that sometimes people don't notice it. But we have
Okay.
jobs, and we have this, and we have
Okay.
sex offenders, and so.
It's on there.
It is on there.
Okay, because I wasn't able to find it. So,
He
all
can
right.
show you where it is.
Thank you. And then I wanted to just kind of prime something. So, co-responders, what do you all think about those?
Well, we actually, as you know, we had to cut 16 positions, but we cut more than that, and we added 2 positions, one in internal mental health peer-to-peer and one an external clinician. So we embrace it, but it has to, again, be embraced properly, like bail reform. You can't send out a mental health person on their own to a call. Some communities have, let's do that. And I don't know if you read the article of the mental health worker. She was repeatedly raped when she was at a home alone for the first time. And she'd been at that home a number of times with other persons with her. And then one time she went alone, and she was kidnapped and repeatedly raped. So things can turn on just in a blink in a mental health situation. We love clinicians, but we love to be able to work in hand in glove with them and not send them out alone. It's not an either or.
So then, from my conversation with the training unit, they say co-responders are a good thing, and it might be worth us talking in caucus about in our budget if we're able to make this request, adding line items for co-responders.
Yeah.
Is that nice? Is something you're
Yeah,
amenable
no,
to?
I mean, and we had talked, I actually spoke again with the state rep yesterday and said that something like that, maybe even on a county or even a sub-county level, because you may not have that co-responder that'd be like the Maytag repairman if you
Yeah.
had one in, a 10,000 person village police department.
Right.
But if you got them on a broader basis, we share everything we have with every police agency. So, what ours is theirs. I say that every chief I see all the time. So if we had a co-responder and it could help them in a pinch or a situation, that person would be going.
Okay.
And I'll follow on with another kind of thing to maybe put in your thinking cap. We would love to do follow-on care for those that we have saved with overdoses. But there's no, we were offered an opportunity to do a program in Pontiac, but it was on overtime, and they don't have the people to, again, because
They're already overtime.
they're already, they would pay, this group would pay for the overtime, but we don't have the people, since we're already pushing the overtime for them to fill the regular slots. So eventually, and then what I told this person in a couple groups is, if you would fund a position, then we could dedicate that. Because what I would like to do, that we can't do, is that we save somebody that overdoses all the time, and lots of times they overdose again. And we'd rather connect them with healthcare, and somebody could help them find a better path, rather than just be the emergency response that saves them again.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
And
Okay.
the same kind of people we'd like to marry up with. Right now, we have a Narcan vending machine in the jail, and when you leave, you can take a free Narcan kit.
Mhm.
Again, it's a Band-Aid. We'd rather have a person from that same kind of organization meet them at the door and say, you got out, they got you clean inside with medically assisted treatment with our MAD program. Now let's find the next steps forward.
Gotcha.
You got to move it along, Charlie.
Okay.
There's a couple other
Okay,
people who have
okay.
questions.
Okay. Well, I was going to just mention from when I've done ride-alongs and spent time in the jail with some of the deputies and others, they'd really love to grow beards outside of November, and those wool pants really suck. Just that's what they say. I don't want to name names, but anyways. And then, and I see that nice black uniform you got, and everyone else wearing brown. So just whatever your
This is
$700,000
actually
uniform budget.
7 years
So-
old I designed it. It's a long process, and certainly you as budgetary concerns, imagine the cost of changing 1,400 uniforms over when you're talking 5 sets of each.
Yeah, maybe we could
So-
have 500 less of those to change.
But-
Yeah.
But
Okay,
suffice to say,
gotcha. Mm-hmm.
I'll tell you this, both of those things we are very actively in the process of.
Okay, so next year you're going to be wearing a beard when you come before us?
I
Good
don't
to
know
know.
about that.
Okay, so
Ask my wife that question.
there you go. Fair enough. Okay, so
Are you done?
no, I have just 2 things. So on the professional services, you have a contract for inmate general collections that expires in October, and none of it's been used, and it's $75,000. And so I'm wondering what that is. And then, yeah. And then I have one other thing about, you mentioned helicopter certificate training, right? How the helicopter's important. You've used $990 in the last 2 years for a
Okay,
$20,000 program.
What line item are you looking at?
So it's a professional services contract? So, and yeah, just want to understand.
So we just sent a group of 4, so
Okay.
it might not have hit anything yet.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what time frame you're looking at that data, but we did and it was quite a hefty price tag, so I'm assuming a
Okay.
large chunk of that has been used. We actually had
Okay.
5 people, I think, slated to go out of state, but one of them had an accident and couldn't go, but we had like 5 or 6 people going, so I think.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a certain amount of training that they're required to have for research. And I think the one pilot she's talking about just shattered his arm.
Because, okay, just curious, because you've had it for a couple of years and it was about to run out,
Yeah,
and
then
you hadn't spent any of it.
Inmate collections, we just switched companies, so I'm not quite sure how that's, if that was last October, but we have we have switched companies to do inmate collections, so they go back and try to settle old accounts.
Oh, okay. Do you not take them to this, or release them to the state, the people that have the?
Charlie, we need to move it along.
Okay. Well, then, last question is, I was getting this coffee mug, it reminded me. Isn't former Undersheriff McCabe, you still have a contract with him, right? He works part-time or something? What does he
Not
do?
a contract, he's a PT&E.
What does that mean, and what does he do for you?
Well, he's actually assisting with a lot of administrative stuff with Corp Counsel, a couple of the lawsuits that are ongoing.
Oh.
So since he was part of that, working with them on some of the lawsuits before he retired, he's still working with them to finish up those projects.
Okay. Is he getting paid as like
A PT
previous?
and hourly rate.
What's that?
It's like every
Like every other
part-time,
PT&E,
non-exempt.
you know, everybody's
Okay.
at the court door, same rate.
Oh,
Not a
gotcha.
full-timer.
Understood. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Commissioner Moss.
Thank you. Sheriff, I remember you talking over a year ago, maybe even 2 years ago, about the need for a training center. the fact that you've identified this weakness, perhaps for training, maybe not even in your own department, but certainly around in the community, I have a question. You're not a lawyer, but God forbid if anything happens and it is laid to the door of insufficient training, does that not create a liability problem? Because if I were an unnamed attorney by the name of Feiger or something, I'd say you guys knew you had a need for training and you guys didn't have a sense of urgency about it and you let it go. Would this perhaps be, all I can see is a sense of urgency to maybe get this done?
Agree 100%. One of the first things anytime we're sued is listed in the articulated lawsuit as failed to train. That's one of the first buzzwords for any police lawsuit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moss. Commissioner McGilvery?
Along the same lines, as the sheriff knows, I'm fully supportive of the training center. My question is, where are we at right now, today, with that training center?
I think we're still waiting for the consultant report. We're like kids waiting at the bottom of the stairs on Christmas, waiting for Santa to come and tell us what's going to happen. We're like, what's the report going to say? So I think that's where we are. I don't know.
November's when it's.
They're supposed to come back with a report in November now.
November?
Yes, sir.
I guess good things take a long time, right?
When you want to spend $80 million, it takes a while to put the plan together.
I understand.
And the training budget did not go up or down. It stayed the same.
Yeah. And
That's all I have.
that's all you had? I just had a couple of questions. I know you've had trouble hiring. What is your current experience with hiring right now? I mean, what are you seeing?
Very challenged. It's hard in this environment, honestly. There's a lot of demonization of law enforcement in some of the national rhetoric, and people feel it. One of the biggest pools of recruitment historically has been generational in police and military. My dad was a cop, my dad's dad was a cop. And historically, I just testified before the United States Senate Judiciary on this topic. Typically, surveys would have 85% would say, my dad, is a cop and he told me I should go into it. Now when you ask police, would you tell your kids or your relatives or a friend to go into it? Instead of being 85% saying yes, it's 85% saying no. So it's really changed dramatically. So we have a much winnowed recruiting pool. And then obviously the world has changed and budgets have changed. No one gets into this job because of the great hours, because they're not, or the great pay, because it's not. It's a calling. But at the end of a career, they at least knew there was a pension waiting for me. And now they don't have that. And now they don't have medical in retirement. And so, we're struggling with all of the things that they don't have and trying to say, you need to come do this. And unless that calling's in your heart, you're looking at it as a job and not as a calling. And that's where our problem is that we don't have enough people. The military's down 80,000. We don't have a lot of people that have a calling to serve in their heart.
Yeah. Okay, different topic, jail population. You said we were at 2,200 before a while back. Then we were at 1,400 before the pandemic. Where are we now?
About 1,000 right now.
Okay. And you expect to kind of stay there? Is that sort of
Well, it's
your...
trickling back up. In
Oh, it
COVID,
is.
we came way down and we pushed real hard on the judges but now that the courts have fully reopened, a lot of
Right. A lot more
backlog cases
cases.
are coming, and
Yep.
we're going to see that tick back up, and we're probably going to have to reopen parts of the jail we shuttered.
Okay. Yeah, that's all my questions. I have more, but we're running out of time. Commissioner Powell?
Just that one in regards to the
Oh,
fleet.
sustainability. Yeah, so the county has a sustainability plan to reduce our carbon footprint and all of that. And in your case, it specifically relates especially to the vehicles, right? And we were just told by facilities that we can't get patrol vehicles yet that are hybrid or that can meet the requirements to be able to be in pursuit.
Right.
So, is that on your radar, that
Oh,
we are
absolutely.
trying to drive
Yeah.
down the cost of fuel and all of that?
We drive, what, 1.6 million miles a year?
Yeah.
Yeah, we would love to reduce the cost of gasoline and the impact of it, but as Central Garage said, there's not a vehicle that's rated for all the things that we do 24/7 with that
Right.
vehicle. You know, and one of the biggest problems with EVs
Excuse
is
me.
obviously,
Excuse me, sir.
so, you know, one of the biggest problems is to have all of those things in a vehicle. We need to be able to run that 24/7 and immediately pop it back out. If you got an EV, unless they come up with the technology to hot swap batteries, you won't be able to do that. There's got to be a charging lag. So our cars are moving.
So maybe, since we are in the middle of the automotive center
Oh,
of the United
misspoke.
States.
It's not 1.5, it's 7 million miles.
Yeah. But since we're here, I'm hopeful that maybe the car companies and everybody talk to you, and that you're kind of part of where we're going in the future, because you do have a big fleet. We're right here.
Yeah,
I'd like to
and we've
encourage us
offered
to
it,
do that.
You know, T&E and to work with any of the manufacturers. You know, we've gone out to GM Proving Grounds to look at different things, and I've driven cars for Chrysler to give them feedback. So,
Cool.
you know, we're always happy to partner with the manufacturers.
All right. Commissioner Powell?
And just one more, y'all made reference to the body cameras, but one thing I want to ask is, because I know you were able to pilot them and test them out in Pontiac, right, with some of them. Has the body-worn cameras assisted in providing footage for internal training purposes? No, I'm talking about they have had some to chest trial. So have y'all used it? If not, don't worry about
Well,
it. I
they're
just-
not wearing it now. That was during the T&E and the evaluation and determination which ones we were going to go to.
Right,
But those are-
right, we
those are-
have, okay.
Yeah.
I figured that, but I just wanted to ask. It was a question on our list. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
It will be, obviously, like, we've had dash cam footage that we've seen and go, okay, you know, let's have them in for a little retraining.
Okay, got it.
Okay, I don't think we have anything else for the sheriffs at this time, so I really appreciate you coming in and preparing for this
Thank
and
you.
helping us.
Thank you.
Appreciate our
So that's
sheriff
it for the
department.
sheriffs, but next on our agenda, we do have a public comment.
Yes, I do.
So, is there anyone from the public who cares to address us? Yeah, we have to have, I know we have to have a public comment, though, it's on our agenda, so if there's anybody from the public who cares to address us, please come to the end of the table.
Bye, be safe out there, sheriffs.
Bye, thank you.
Okay, well, if we have no one for public comment, I will close it, and I will declare this meeting adjourned at 4:18.
You guys need this room, right?
Nothing for you, Ross? Not today?
Thank you.